Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, despite one head coaching job still being available in the NFL, former Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy has decided to wait until the 2026 coaching cycle to find a job. News out of New Orleans seems to indicate that Eagles OC Kellen Moore is the favorite to land the job after he came in for his second interview on Monday. They would not be able to announce if he was hired or not until after the really big game 2 Sundays from now. Some injury news in the NBA. Lakers star Anthony Davis will be out at least a week after he strained an abdominal muscle in their loss to the 76ers on Tuesday. And then in Atlanta, Hawks forward Jalen Johnson will have season-ending surgery to repair a torn labrum in his left shoulder. Johnson was averaging career highs in points, rebounds, and assists. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Will Ortner at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080. The Fan.
Slam Dunk in Vegas is our nationwide.
Hey, welcome aboard.
Ahoy!
One more day of an SOB edition of Primetime. Sook, Ortner, and Buckley here. Rop out, still in Vegas. I don't know about you, Sook. I have not yet received communication indicating that we won't be getting Rop tomorrow.
No, the last I heard from him was Monday, and there was an old-fashioned being had at a brunch.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. We'll see, because I'm assuming he's coming home today, although Rop has been known to pull the fly in the morning/afternoon of his return. So
that is a good way to potentially accidentally build in an extra day off for yourself.
It's as the Vancouver Ford text line says here. Rop throat tickle yet? We have not received.
Haven't received the throat tickle text yet.
Tickle, but
no.
Let's be honest. If it were to come, no one's surprised.
No, and it would probably come at earliest this evening, maybe 8:30 or so.
Isaac Rop is the Anthony Davis of sports radio. Extremely talented. You can build a championship on his back. When he's hurt, it's not a shock. He's not Embiid. He's my Anthony Davis. He'll go for 43 and 12, and then he'll end up with something that'll keep him out for like a week.
It's a little too sportsy, but I think we only mentioned this off the air yesterday, but Embiid sitting out his 400th game last night, and he's played 446.
Dude, there are guys in the NBA that it's just stealing money. And look, I will never fault anyone for making money. From the Paul brothers to the Kardashians,
go get your bag.
Go get your bag, right? I think Dirt and Sprague were talking about all the celebrities that have like built up like liquor companies.
Yeah.
Sure, dude. You want
to hawk a tequila? Go hawk a tequila.
Have at it, man. You make $500 million, dude, get what you can get. But the NBA, that union, dude, just stealing money and coming from a sport, the only sport I was ever any good at in football, where you just don't get those sorts of guarantee deals. Imagine
it's culturally unacceptable to sit out and to like
you would just be gone. No, like you would never receive another contract again. Embiid would be playing on 1-year proven NFL deals for the rest of his life. Zion's just as bad. Zion basically is a shorter, fatter Greg Oden, and yet we don't view him the same way. And they just give that dude hundreds of millions of dollars. And watch, whenever his contract's up, they're going to give that bowl of gravy another couple $100 million. And then
you think so?
They will. Someone will give Zion.
See, I
got to find out when his contract's up.
I feel like someone's going to do a prove it deal with him. But you think he's going to get a full bag from somebody?
I don't know if it'll be a full bag, but it's going to be a bag.
Oh.
Welcome to the NBA. Dude, they just hand out money. And I know the new CBA, and supposedly this is supposed to curtail some of that. I haven't seen it. Have you seen what you even looked at NBA contracts and you're like, wait, you make what?
Dude, you're not lying.
Huh?
I thought that the Zion to Odin comparison was a little bit unfair to
It's
Zion.
not.
It's not really. He's only played in 196 games.
In how many years?
Let's see. He was drafted.
He's been around a while, dude.
in-
He's not like 12 anymore.
Don't you think that that's more unfair to Odin on the comparison? Because Odin actually had real injuries. Zion's injuries are mostly because he's fat.
And
He's always like popping a hamstring or something.
Well, it's because
Yeah.
he likes soda and not diet soda.
yeah.
How many games? So I do want to like how
So
many games
Odin-
has Odin because he played what, like 5 years?
So Odin played 105 games over parts of 7 seasons.
Okay.
And then Zion,
Although that's unfair because like the last year or two he didn't, like, he was just there but he didn't really play at all. Remember, like, I think it was with the Heat or something.
and then looks like, so Zion was drafted in 2019, so he'd be on 1920. So he's almost to the amount of time that Odin was in the league by seasons, and he's played about twice as many games, but he's been more healthy than Odin for sure.
Yeah, Odin only played 2 years. Like he played 2 years. He played
Yeah.
he played with Portland, then he had 3 straight years where he didn't play, and then he played like 6 games with the Miami Heat. So if you go off of the 2 seasons he played versus the 2 seasons that Zion's played, they're not much different. And Zion, by the way, just this year, he will make, I'm looking here. He'll make 37, then 39, 42, and 45. So yes, he will be 27 years old, and someone will sign him to another multi-$100 million contract.
And that's the thing, is if with that age, if he's structurally sound, if he doesn't have issues with his ankles or knees, you're absolutely right.
They
Somebody's gonna
gave
throw a
him
bunch of money at him.
$197 million to do whatever it is he does. And yes, I'll call right now, when he hits free agency after he's got, 3 more years, someone will give him another $200 million. Absolutely.
Man, it's good to be.
And then we wonder why.
Zion.
And then we wonder why the NBA, like Adam Silver came out today and was talking about like reducing games. Like he wants to play 10-minute quarters.
What is that gonna do?
Because that's the problem with the NBA is the length of the quarters. Okay.
I also saw that this weekend we've got we got Pebble Beach Pro-Am coming up. I always like the Pebble Beach Pro-Am because I like when they pair the celebrities with people at golf tournaments. I feel like we should have more of that. I know they try to do that with the match. I think those suck, but when you see the actual golf competitors with the Pro-Am people, I think that's fun.
That goes to the people always say, like, whenever you have the Olympics, you should have one
Yes.
random dude.
Yes.
Just so you can see how bad the average guy looks compared.
Yeah.
Because that would, I've always said that would be fun. And so yeah, sometimes when you're watching the celebrity pro-am, like even like Tom Brady and those guys who are decent golfers,
Totally chunking a tee shot or whatever.
yeah,
and like,
you kind of look up there and you're like, eee.
hey, he's human too. I like that.
I would also like to point out that Ben Simmons has made over $200 million.
Actually, how many games for Ben Simmons?
That's like, again, let's look at NFL salary. It's like Ben Simmons makes $40 million.
362 games.
Ben Simmons makes $40 million a year. And like, I mean, I guess outside of like quarterbacks, because that's the one, because the NFL does have silly contracts when it comes to quarterbacks, right? I mean, the idea that Trevor Lawrence is making $50 million is kind of sad and depressing. But if you get outside of quarterbacks, it's shameful, like the amount of money that elite NFL players are making, and then you realize that Ben Simmons has $200 million guaranteed dollars.
And there's like a bunch of those dudes in the NBA.
Oh, dude, there's a million of them, and you don't have to be good. No offense, like Anthony Simons isn't a bad player, but Anthony Simons isn't good.
Yeah, I wouldn't go as far as being like, well, he's just a guy, but he's kind of
he's kind of
just a guy.
Dude, that dude is a dime. You know how many players in the NBA can get you 20 a night?
Yeah.
We talk about this all the time. Like the idea of being a guy that can score 20 points in the NBA and that's like all you can do, dude, you can find those guys all over the place. But it still got him $100 million. I was like, here's $100 million guaranteed.
Well, now you've got an idea percolating in my head, kind of like, if we put an everyman out there with all the Olympians, What would happen if we forced like all sports to be played with just one average Joe? Like you're stuck taking just some boob from the fan base, and like he's got to make up your starting five tonight for the 76ers. You've got Phil from Carbondale or something like that, and he's out there. He's filling in for Embiid at the 4.
It'd be fantastic.
Just put in like one extra person, like in Little League. You know how you that hide your worst player in right field or whatever. Like no, you've got to put somebody out there tonight with the glove, and he's got to take it at bat too. You got to do it.
Someone just goes out and just. Well, in certain sports, like,
and where would you hide someone on the football field? You couldn't really.
I think I don't know, like
a receiver, because no one could hit him unless they got thrown to.
Yeah, you just play like Buffalo plays a lot of those like bunch formations. You just put him like over there. You put him in the bunch, and you have him like go in motion, and then the other team would still have to somewhat cover him, I suppose, because if you just leave him alone, like
if you pretended he didn't exist,
don't
they
throw
could
to
do
stone hands. Like
but...
I guess you could throw him the ball. I mean, that'd be the only place to hide him. You couldn't hide him anywhere on defense. It'd have to be on offense. Yeah, I think you'd have to hide him. Maybe at running back. I don't know. Like if you went in empty formation, you just put him at running back and you ran like a little wheel route with him. You're like, dude, just. We're going to run a clear out for you, and then you just you're the check down. We're just floating you out to the left, and if he throws you the ball, by all means, catch it, and if you get it, just fall down.
Fetal position immediately.
Just fall down, go to a knee.
Like you've recovered an onside kick. Just curl up into a little ball.
Yeah. Hockey would be another great one. I would love to see someone on an NHL rink, just the average beer league hockey player.
Oh, no, yeah.
Because that's alarming. If you ever want to see, like, even like the WHL, that's really good hockey. You'll go to see the Winterhawks play, and those kids, and there are kids, they're 16, 17, 18, 19 years old. Some of those kids will be in the NHL in a year. And so there's some really, really good play. But I grew up taking my kids to Winterhawk games, and then we go up every year. We go up and see Canucks games. Now you can go see Kraken games. The difference between those and all those Winterhawk kids can skate. And then you see the NHL players skate and you're like, oh my God. Then go watch like your average pickup game at Mountain View Ice Arena or wherever, like even guys that look like they can skate. When you've watched real hockey, it looks like they have some sort of palsy. It's like it's really bad to see, and imagine that
the discrepancy
guy.
is insane.
It is. I don't know if there is a bigger gap between your average beer league guy in a sport than hockey. Maybe golf. Golf would be that way too. Again, if you put the average like 6 handicap and you put him out there in a PGA tournament.
Yeah.
You could finally test the theory on like if you just get the biggest, fattest average Joe and stick him in net, like would they get enough saves?
Couldn't get a puck past him. Yeah. That's a good point.
I would like to point out that guy would give up 1,000 goals.
We don't know. No one's tested that theory. It's a
not
hypothesis.
if he just hunkers down and gets big.
Like, what if we get one of those fatties from TLC 600-pound life? Like, would they be able to be a good goalie?
This reminds me, we have a topic in the club today. Can you share or sue a rideshare service for being too fat? That'll be coming to play.
I've seen that rapper.
Yeah.
She might be a good goalie.
Yeah,
I didn't,
we're gonna get familiar with Dank Deas.
I was not familiar with that rapper. But
I'm not sure I still am.
I looked it up after the show. I had to.
Yeah, Lizzo's got nothing. I mean, that's well, we had the Hawaiian guy that did Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Oh yeah,
I think he's dead, but I think
did he pass?
He died a long time ago. But I think he was like 6 spins. Like look, I think his name was like Israel something or other.
There's another guy.
It's bad
right now that's been viral. I think his name is like, I want to say it's like Dave Bluntz. Do you know who this is?
It is
Will?
Dave Bluntz. I know exactly.
He's a dude who's like, he's literally too big to stand up and perform, so he gets like wheeled out on a couch.
He has oxygen.
Yeah, and he's like on oxygen.
He has an oxygen mask,
God,
so he raps a verse, and then he puts the oxygen mask on, and then he raps another verse.
And he's wearing purple. He looks like Grimace. And by the way, let me state for the record, like I feel bad for people. Like, I mean, I'm not saying I'm the thinnest person in the world, and I certainly have been fatter than I am now. And I know it sucks when you get on an airplane and like you spill over into another seat, but dude, if you're 600 pounds, I'm sorry.
You've got something to do with that.
Yeah, some of that's on you, and
most of that's on you.
So if you can't, like, it's silly that you're asking airlines or an Uber to. accommodate you. Like, you can't be the outlier of outliers and be like, how dare you don't have something that works for me. If I'm 9 feet tall, I can't buy a coach ticket and then be upset that Spirit Airlines that I don't fit on that. It is not up to Spirit Airlines to accommodate the outlier.
Yes.
So that's just, I know it sucks. I know people, that's one of those things where it's like, oh, I can't believe I have to buy 2 seats. Well, I don't know what you want to do because you can't fit in one. And I know it sucks. I really don't fit in one, but if I suddenly ballooned up to 3 times my size,
Someone's going to have to be reasonable and honest about there got to be some truth telling here.
Yeah, every now and then, like with Zion, you just got to tell the truth.
Primetime follow-up. Texter says, I've told my dad that I text into the show every once in a while, and when on the phone with me yesterday, he asked if I was the one who sharded in traffic.
Oh.
And yes, he was. This person texted us.
Really? And he had to come clean?
Well, I assume so, because how would he have known?
Well, he couldn't have done it in traffic. He'd have to come clean after.
That's true. You do. That's when you just go right to the shower.
Well, right.
And those get burned.
I think this person texted us that happened, and then his dad was like, "Hey, I'm listening. Was that you?" And like, I think I'm putting that together right. I assume. Well, maybe I'm jumping the gun on that and putting connecting dots that aren't there. But
it's possible that guy's got a history. Because let's be honest, if you are someone that has an irritable bowel or you've got some lactose issues, look, I'll be honest. I have issues when I'm walking the dog in the morning. Like, there's times that I come running into the house, and my family knows what's up. If you see me bolting into the house and the dog leash just gets thrown, everyone knows what's up. So I think this isn't one of the, like, you either are or you aren't one of these people. So yes, if I was a regular texter into a show and my significant other or my kids were listening and that happened, they would probably do one of those, hey, was that you? I feel like that's you. So this guy probably has he's got a rep.
Text line's on fire today. One person says bowl of gravy sounds like a rapper that Ortner listens to.
I could see Ortner listening to bowl of gravy.
I just stick to Jelly Roll.
Of course
no
you
bowl
do.
of
That
gravy.
Young gravy?
Young gravy.
Yeah, I'm not listening to that guy. That guy sucks.
And is Rob the street clothes of the fan? I think that's probably right.
Yeah, Rob's not playing hurt. We'll say that.
He's
right
not
now.
Embiid. He's not out half the time.
No, but he's not playing hurt. That's why I said
it's more like a Kawhi. Like I won't do back-to-backs anymore. And
I thought Anthony Davis was a nice.
Anthony Davis is really solid. That was a good place to start.
He's the Anthony Davis of the fan. He's elite and
gives fair credit for the talent. Yeah,
he wins titles, but hey,
not always going to be there for you.
No, not always going to be there for you. He's not. You know what? He's not playing 82 games. How about that?
Let's get into some sports. What the hell are the Blazers doing?
Yeah,
that's coming up next. Primetime, 1080 The Fan. Stunning weight revelations during the break. Yes, we were talking about the rapper who's suing Lyft and the Lyft driver because she was too big to ride.
Yeah.
And then we got into what's it? Dave Blunt? Is that who it is, Ortner? Dave Blunt?
Yep, he's a rapper.
And
singer.
he's like, I think he's like 600 pounds. And then somebody texted in that Big Pun was 700 pounds and died of a heart attack on stage. And I remember Big Pun, and to say I remember him, I remember Still Not a Playa, and I remember it being on the Rush Hour soundtrack and that being
Terror
like
Squad, man.
the song of like 1998 or something like that. But I was like, there's no way he was 700 pounds. We looked it up.
Yep.
They estimated he was 698 pounds when he died.
Yeah, when he died, he was 5'7", 698.
It's insane.
Hey, and then, by the way, there's photos.
Yeah, it's
Yowzers.
It's rough.
Well, again, he died of a heart attack and respiratory failure at 28 years old.
Yeah.
It's not good. Hey, bottom line is this. We all dig our own grave. It's just how fast we dig and what shovel we use. So I guess he just dug a little faster and had a big old shovel.
Well,
that was more of like a snow plow sort of thing. That's a snow shovel he was digging with.
Well, in analogies that might just segue, how about the Blazers and whatever grave they're digging for themselves right now? Because we thought
break them up.
We thought that this was going to be really a tankathon season. We were talking about capture the flag from the back end of last season being a deal, and they were kind of plucky early. They started out like 4-6 or something, and people were like, what are they doing? And then they got bad for a while. Well, now they've won 5 of 6, and they just kind of whooped up on an Eastern Conference powerhouse in Milwaukee. And listen, if you want to see growth from certain players and you want to see the team win, then this is all wonderful for you. But it still feels like we're careening towards this permanent purgatory of we're good enough to compete, but we're not bad enough to get any better.
The tankathon thing, it is weird now because you're closer to the play-in than you are the worst record in the league.
Yeah.
But Danny talks about this all the time. Like the way they've weighted it now, the top 4 spots all they have the same odds, right?
Right.
And so it really doesn't behoove you to be the Washington Wizards. Like that doesn't matter.
But you need to be in that mix down there.
And then from 5 and 6, you have just a slightly less chance. So the top 6 are really right there. I think it's a 4% chance difference if I'm not mistaken. So I think the top 4 have the same percentage, and then 5 and 6, I think it's a 4-point drop, and then there's a huge drop off after that. 7, 8, 9, it gets exponentially worse. So you need to be in the top 6, right? So the question becomes, because right now you're right there, right around that top 6.
Yeah, so to the numbers that you're speaking of, teams 1, 2, and 3 all have a 14% chance.
Okay, 1, 2, and 3. So
and
it's not...
4 has 12.5%. So it's like they're all right there. And then even 5 has a 10.5%. Then 6 gets 9, 7 gets 7.5. You get to 8, you're at 6%.
Yeah, so
4.5, 3, and so on.
So really, you want top 5. Top 6 is not that much different. Than after that, it's a wing and a prayer, right?
Right.
So you're not catching Utah. You're not going to be New Orleans. You're certainly not going to be the Wizards. You're probably not going to be Charlotte. So it's you, it's Brooklyn, it's Toronto, it's Philly.
And right now you are 4 games behind Toronto, and in the win column behind Toronto and Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And you're 6 games behind Charlotte and New Orleans.
Let's also realize too that over the last 3 years, no one has tanked harder after the All-Star break than the Blazers.
Yeah.
I think they have like 13 combined wins after the All-Star break in the last 3 seasons. Like they pull the cord like no other.
Yeah.
So I understand the idea that this is a little like, oh God, what are we doing here? Right? We're 5 of 6 and we're not playing. Well, we are playing the young guys, but not starting. Scoot went to the bench. Shaden went to the bench. During the stretch runs, like to close these games out, you're not seeing them on the floor. You're going with more of the veterans. So I definitely understand why people are upset about this. I wish I could tell you that I had a better idea of exactly what they're doing. I think we'll have a better idea after the All-Star break. We'll see what sort of moves are made. We'll see who starts long-term sitting out. Like Jeremy Grant got hurt last night. If he's around, do you end up sitting him? Do you start seeing, more of Donovan Clingan? Do you see less of Ayton? Do you see less of Time Lord? Do you see, maybe Scoot or Shaden going back into the starting lineup? Because it does feel right now that you're in kind of a weird purgatory where you don't have a team good enough to win. You don't have a team good enough to beat remotely competitive against the best teams in the NBA on a night-to-night basis. I think the Milwaukee one, dude, that's their Super Bowl. Dame's back in town. You could tell.
Yeah.
Like, that's one that they get up for. It's their only national televised game all year.
Mhm.
Second night of a back-to-back for Milwaukee after being in Utah. That's just one of those that, and look, Portland shot the ball really well. And Ayton gave a damn, right? I was reading on Blazers Edge that after Ayton got his ass whipped in the NBA Finals against Giannis and company, that's a game that he gets up for. And we all know when Ayton's engaged.
When he cares, he can be really good.
He's really good. And when he doesn't, well, which most of the time he doesn't. So it's a weird situation. I'm reserving judgment till after the All-Star break and we see if the cord really gets pulled. But if I'm a Blazer fan and you end up as the eighth, kind of the eighth worst record in the NBA, that is going to be very problematic.
Yeah, then you only have a 6% chance at getting the top pick.
Well, and not only do you have a 6% chance of getting the top pick, but chances are you're just going to end up picking 7th or 8th.
Right.
Like, what are we doing? That's my thing. If you're top 5, maybe even top 6, you're not catching the Wizards. And by the way, I don't think people in this city have a stomach for catching the Washington Wizards. I don't think like you are not prepared to win 6 games all year. Look at the apathy and as crappy as we view this team now, and it's really not that bad. At times, it looks okay, and you've seen the development. I think you have a piece in Kamara, who's become something, right?
Yeah.
Avdia
looks like he's going to be a future cornerstone.
Yes, so I think you have those two guys. You know, the Shadens and the Scoots.
I'm going to
and even Klingon. I think that's kind of one of those, like, I wish we had a little more defined role of where those are going. I just don't want this to be a complete lost season. And I feel like if you end up 7th or 8th, I feel like this is just, you're just kicking the can down the road and you're getting marginally better with a marginal player sitting there at the 7th or 8th spot. So I am not mashing the panic button yet, but I will say that my hand is starting to move towards it just a bit.
Yeah, and the thing that I continue to struggle with is Chauncey's still in his first head coaching job, and he's a guy that for his own future and for his own benefit,
he needs to win.
Wants to and needs to win.
Yes.
So he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do. And if you didn't want him to go down this path this year where they're kind of competitive, then you should have canned him before the season started and given someone else the job to say, hey, this is the year to lose.
This is the weirdest thing, is because at the end of the day, you go back a couple years, you brought in a coach that was brought in to win and build around Dame. He did not sign up for this. I think you tried to get him to quit last year.
Yep.
And he didn't. And you didn't let him go look at other jobs, and you won't fire him. You canned his brother. You said that you were going to go all in. Well, you didn't go all in. And now, all right, we're going with a youth movement. But at the same time, and I get that maybe it's not a good idea to just throw every young guy to the wolves, right? The idea of if you throw Scoot and you throw Sharp and you throw Klingon out there and they're not ready, right? Do you do more harm than good? Think about like with a rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
Like, because let's be honest, for a while, Scoot was absolute dog-ass.
Right. And putting him in the starting role and continuing to throw himself out there and letting him be that bad over and over again can be detrimental if you let it go on too long.
And Klingon, for the most part, hasn't not proven that he can even play 20 minutes a night.
Right.
He just doesn't have...
He's got flashes.
He's got flashes. And then Sharp is... I think he's the one guy that you're trying to really round into form and trying to get him to be a complete player. And if he's not willing to do that, maybe you do have some tough lessons that he needs to learn. So I'm not one of these guys that say, hey, you need to play these guys 38 minutes a night. But I hope to God, and I'm not in those meetings and I'm not super attached to the Blazers, I would hope that there's some sort of plan.
Yep.
I would hope that there is a plan from Chauncey to management to Cronin to Jody to the players.
I have concepts of a plan.
Yeah, I hope that there's some sort of plan moving forward and we don't have multiple, for the last handful of years, it feels like we have multiple timelines, right? And we have multiple people with different ideas of where this is going to go. And that's the only part that scares me, is it feels a little disjointed right now that there isn't one path forward.
Yeah.
And while it's fun to see the Blazers have last night, if you're a Blazer fan, it's awesome.
If you just want to see this team win and you're like, whatever, they're going to have to figure it out some way. Like, I want them to entertain me and see them win. You're having a great ride right now.
Yes, but I just don't, I said, that to me is a waste. Winning 24 games this year and ended up with the 8th worst record. What did we just do? Because let's be honest, outside of Denny, who I think you can say that, and Tumani, right? I think you have two guys. And by the way, neither one of them is a star. But I think both of those
Solid
guys
pieces.
in some way look like that is you plug them into what you're doing, right? You got a 3-and-D guy, and it seemed to be a who's just a badass on defense, and he's a role player though. That guy is not a needle mover. He's a role player. He needs to be your fourth best player, but he's there. You got him.
Right.
And you've got another guy that appears to be a solid starter, right? Solid starter, and maybe becomes a little better than that.
Yeah, still really young.
Still really young, right? Maybe he becomes one of those I don't know, like a better version of like a Rudy Gay or Tayshaun Prince,
Sure.
like or Iggy for Golden State,
Right? Like a long 3-and-D capable scorer. Yeah.
But you don't have, and this is my whole problem. You don't have one guy, not a single one, that you look at and said that is a foundational piece. And maybe Ant turns into one. I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe Klingon turns into one. Way too early to tell. Maybe Sharp. Maybe that's your best bet to turn into one. And Scoot, which appears to be a galaxy away. And that's my biggest problem. And it's been my biggest problem. Good players don't win in the NBA. They don't. It doesn't work. You need guys. And right now there isn't a single one on your roster that you can say definitively, or even more than likely, turns into the guy, or even the second guy. Maybe you've got the third wheel on this thing. I think you have the fourth wheel. Maybe you have the fourth and fifth wheel. Maybe you have the third, but you certainly don't have one that's one, and you don't have one that's two. And it scares the living daylights out of me that because you're relying right now on the third, fourth, and fifth wheel, that you're going to end up with the eighth damn best record, or the eighth worst record.
And maybe get another third, fourth, or fifth wheel.
And get another third and fourth wheel. And that's just not good enough. You need someone that's a one or a two. And it appears that this draft is where to find them.
Yep.
So my hope is, enjoy this. You've won 5 or 6. Great. Come trade deadline, don't win. And I think Danny always says 22 wins, right? That's the bet. Do not win more than 22 games.
Well, you're at 14, aren't you?
I think you're at 18.
18 already. 18. That's right.
So
you're chasing 2 teams.
Enjoy this while it lasts. And that was a fun night. But my God, after the deadline, start pulling the cord.
Yeah.
Stop playing the veterans at the end of games. Start getting some guys with some lower body injuries. Get some bad backs. Stop. Because if you end up with the 8th pick, all you did was absolutely waste this season. And let's be honest, I'm tired of wasted seasons because I think we've had about 4 of them in a row.
I think a lot of Blazers fans feel that way. Coming up next, we know that the Chiefs are the team right now, but who's got next? Suk with some ideas about who could be coming in behind the Chiefs as the next great team. We'll get to that next, but first, Ortner at SportsCenter.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a SportsCenter update on 1080 The Fan.
First on the Fan over in the NBA, the Blazers are off today after their victory over the Bucks. They're going to return to action on Thursday against the Magic. There's still some big games happening in the association today, though. The Cavs are traveling to take on the Miami Heat. No Jimmy Butler as he serves another suspension by the Heat organization. Cavs are favored by 6.5. Total is set at 224.5. After that one, the Timberwolves travel to Phoenix to take on the Suns in a matchup that could be a preview of a Western Conference playoff series. Phoenix is favored by 1.5. The total for that one is set at 218.5. Some injury news for the Lakers. Their star big Anthony Davis will be out at least a week after he strained an abdominal muscle in their loss to the 76ers on Tuesday. Davis will miss the rest of the Lakers road trip where they take on the Wizards, Knicks, and the Clippers. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Will Ortner at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
Jump back to earlier
Primetime, moving from the hardwood to the gridiron. Talked a little bit yesterday about what it's going to take to beat the Chiefs or emerge from the AFC, because a lot of teams have had chances and few have been able to get in their way. Obviously, the Chiefs, the it team right now, and it doesn't look like they're going anywhere anytime soon with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid kind of sharing the helm there. But was talking with you a little bit before the show about who could be coming in next and who might be the future teams of tomorrow. And not to say that anyone's going to come in and do what the Chiefs have done, because that's pretty ridiculous. But when you look at the landscape of the NFL and the teams who have tried that might be seeing their windows closing, who could be next?
I just look at the NFC. If I'm a head coach, I want nothing to do with the AFC. Nothing. I mean, you think about what you have to go through in the AFC. So if you are Josh Allen and you are Lamar Jackson and you are Joe Burrow, right? Can we, by the way, there's this other guy, Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
So without a doubt, the four best quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, is that there's not even someone that's in a conversation.
No.
I mean, it is 1 through 4, and it's not even close. And you have to see those sons of bitches every single year. I mean, think about it. If you're Lamar Jackson, you had to go through Josh Allen, couldn't get it done. Josh Allen had to go through Lamar Jackson, and your reward for going through Lamar Jackson
is you get to go through Mahomes.
You get to go through Mahomes, right? The only one, by the way, that's gotten through Mahomes is Joe Burrow. Well, Tom Brady did it, but you know, he's gone. So you think about it, Buffalo is going nowhere. I mean, Buffalo's team is essentially set. You're going to have to tweak a little bit, and you need to get better in the secondary.
And they might have to get creative because, as we mentioned yesterday,
yeah, it's not a ton of cap space.
And that's only dwindling as Josh Allen gets paid more by the year. You even mentioned they may have to restructure that thing.
I think they'll restructure Allen. I think they're going to lower his cap because Allen's not going anywhere. You rely on it. They'll stretch it out, and they'll find some wiggle room, and they got to be good in the draft, and they got to get some young guys that come up. But as constructed, Buffalo's good. Buffalo's going nowhere, right? And then you look at the Ravens. The Ravens aren't going anywhere. In fact, the Ravens should continue to get better. I mean, Zay Flowers might have made a difference in that game with Baltimore. And, you know, Derrick Henry, maybe he gets a little older, but Derrick Henry appears to be ageless and is on still a very manageable contract. So Baltimore isn't going anywhere. And we sure as hell know that the Chiefs aren't going anywhere. Mm-hmm. The Chiefs have proven that they can revamp themselves. I mean, almost every Super Bowl team they have is a new version.
They're a chameleon. They put Reid and Mahomes at the center, and they figure the rest out around it.
And then you got Cincinnati. Cincinnati fired their defensive coordinator. You would hope that it gets better. They've really whiffed.
Yeah, they brought in Al Golden of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish to be their defensive
they just have whiffed on the defensive side of the ball. They've spent most of their draft capital on the defense.
And they spent a lot of money on the defensive side of the ball.
And it's crap. But I don't know if you can re-sign T. Higgins, but if you can get T. Higgins to come back, look, either way, you have Joe Burrow and you have Jamar Chase. Guess what? You're not going anywhere. I want nothing to do with the AFC. I do not see a single AFC team, not a single one, that if you asked me for 5 years, let's go 4 to 5 years, right? That's the window we're talking about. I wouldn't bet 2 rat farts that there's another AFC team that will sniff a Super Bowl. I mean, Denver, Chargers, Titans, Jags, Colts, Texans. By the way, we thought the Texans were kind of the it team. Texans regressed in almost every fashion.
Yep.
From Stroud's rookie year to this. Oh, and by the way, if Houston does kind of pop a little bit, might I add that there's yet another team in the AFC that you would have to go through if they can get their crap together, which I'm not sure they can. So to me, if you're talking about the future of the NFL and a team that could get to a Super Bowl, because once you get to the Super Bowl, you got a puncher's chance, right? Philly could have beat Kansas City a couple years ago when they were in the blew a 4th or 10-point second half lead.
Yep.
Had the terrible fumble, scooped up, went the other way. Awful pass interference call, horrific in the corner of the end zone. Philly is
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's atrocious.
Yeah.
So you just got to get to the Super Bowl, and then you've got to slay the dragon. Whether that's Mahomes or whether that's Allen, whoever the NFC is going to see in the Super Bowl is nasty. So I think you start looking, if you want to talk about future teams, to me it's the NFC. And I think the team that if you are betting right now, because Detroit would be the one that you think kind of has it going forward, but Detroit lost both coordinators. let's see where Detroit goes with this. And Detroit doesn't have a generational quarterback. They have a very good quarterback, but he's a statue. He doesn't scramble. He doesn't move around, and he doesn't necessarily play well against the blitz. And fun fact, if you want to talk about building your team, you know what all 4 teams that played in the conference title games had? Like there's like 3 stats that that it's like a universal indicator. And number 1, they were all top 8 against the blitz. You have to be able to handle the blitz.
Okay.
And part of handling the blitz is the ability to move. And Detroit doesn't have that.
Yep. You're
so
right.
I think that is a little scary. So I think when you look at teams in the NFC, the one that stands out to you is the Commanders. Philly is really good, and Philly has the best team. But I would look at Philly and say, can you keep this team together year after year after year? You pay your quarterback a ton of money. And by the way, your quarterback isn't that good. Your quarterback's like, he's kind of like Detroit. That's kind of what you're dealing with. He's a Joe Flacco. He's not a gravitational player.
No.
And you look at Philly. Philly is an expensive team, and eventually, although they've done so well in drafting, but eventually the Jalen Carters and the Mitchells and the Cooper DeJeans, like you have to pay some of these guys, but Philly should be there for a long while, and everything else is kind of a big question mark. So Washington is the team that if Washington has a ton of money, and I mean a ton of money to go out and spend, this should be the worst version of the Commanders that you see going forward. But remember, this is the exact same thing we said about the Houston Texans, who ended up taking a huge step backwards. So to me, when I look at intriguing teams in the NFC, I think Chicago is intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
Green Bay has one of the youngest rosters in the NFL.
And I think that LaFleur is a really good coach.
That I find very, very intriguing. And I think the Atlanta Falcons are an intriguing team. If Michael Penix ends up being a franchise quarterback, I wish we could have seen Penix for an entire year like we saw Bo Nix. Because if you're Denver right now, you look at a Bo Nix, you're like, hey,
okay,
we're good.
We got something.
We got something.
Yep.
If Penix turns out to be that guy, I think Atlanta is a very, very, very interesting team. And then Minnesota, J.J. McCarthy. What happens there? Because that's the other thing that all of these teams have are truly elite quarterbacks, with the exception of Philly.
Mm-hmm.
Philly has a very good one. Detroit has a very good one, but they're elite everywhere else. That's really a hard way to do it, and it's also a hard way to keep that team together. So I just think if you're betting on futures, I think you need to look in the NFC, because I think the AFC is set. I think you have 4 teams in the AFC for the next 5 years. I don't see another team in the AFC sniffing that thing, with the exception of Houston. Houston fired their OC. They fired their O-line coach. If Houston gets their act together up front, we can add Houston to that mix, and maybe they supplant Cincinnati.
Yeah.
But the AFC is set.
Yeah.
The AFC ain't going anywhere. You got 4 to 5 teams, and for the next 5 years, that's where you go. I feel like the NFC, man, it is an absolute crapshoot. I could see
there for the taking, it feels
it
like.
It is there for the taking. So if you're one of those teams, like if you're Chicago, if you're Green Bay, if you're Atlanta, San Francisco, you get aggressive, and you get aggressive now, because your window to win is right stinking now. It is up for grabs.
A lot of good thoughts coming in on the fan text line on this. We'll get to some of those thoughts on the other side. You're listening to Primetime, 1080 The Fan.
The Fan is live.
Primetime. I'm just here watching videos of Sook's doppelganger jump off of cliff sides into icy water.
Yeah, I think he jumps off with like axes and stuff too.
Yeah, he does like he's bald, he's got a big Sook beard, very Viking-like. Apparently he's Norwegian and jumps off of mountainsides into chilly water, and that's his thing.
Yeah, they do like he listens. There's like YouTube clips or little whatever TikToks, and there's usually some sort of Viking war chant, and then he dives off with like 2 battle axes.
Yeah, I was watching a video of
good.
him doing a, quote, death dive, 40.5 meters or 132 feet.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yikes.
I'm all for some Viking silliness, but let's lay off all the trend, and I don't think we need to drop. How high was that thing?
40.5 feet?
40.5 feet. I did
40.5 meters, 132 feet.
See, that's insane. I jumped off the highest thing I ever jumped off of was the stupid. Remember the bridge that it's out in
Molten Falls, are you talking about?
Yeah, Molten Falls, where the one gal pushed the other one off and she like punctured a lung. Yeah, I think it's Molten Falls.
Yeah, it's like 60 feet up. There's like a small cliff that you can jump off. There's a medium. And
Yeah,
then
it's like in
there's
Yakult.
the
Yeah,
third.
I jumped off that bridge and I want to say that's like 50 feet.
I think it's closer to 60.
Is it?
It's high.
It's stupid and it really hurts. And you think that you break your ankles when you go in. And then it's disorienting when you go down because you're not sure which way's up and it takes your breath away. And don't do it. That's 60. If that's 60 feet and this dude did
132.
Yeah, same bridge. Didn't jump off it. There's a little rope swing underneath because I'm a candy ass and I'm scared of heights. So I only did 40. And when I fell off the rope, I belly flopped. I had a bruise for like 2 weeks the size of a volleyball right on my chest.
Yeah,
Boy.
54 feet is the highest that I've ever done. And I've done it once and I will not do it again. It
Don't
hurt.
do it.
It sucked. I can't fathom
32.
So he almost tripled what that bridge is. I can't. Absolutely can't imagine. So he is way more Viking than I.
Wrapping up a couple thoughts from the text line on our Who's Got Next in the NFL. This one texter says, assuming the Chiefs continue under Mahomes, you're looking at best 5 to 7 years from now. So that means no Burrow and no Allen, assuming those guys are basically at the ends of their prime at that point in time.
But I don't know if that's the case. I mean, the way
quarterbacks last now,
Josh Allen's 28 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, all these guys, Allen, Burrow, Mahomes, you may be getting
8 to 10?
7 to 10 more years, depending. And a lot can happen, during that time. But you would think that these guys aren't going to retire at 34 or 35. They may be lesser versions of themselves, but it's going to be a bit.
And people asked about the Niners and about the Rams.
Yeah, the Rams are interesting in that I like the Rams, but Stafford is probably done. Like if you watch Matthew Stafford, and I said this all year, the Rams' best is scary good. Like the Rams' best could win a Super Bowl if you put it all together for one game. I mean, they beat the Bills this year.
Yep.
The Rams are really good, but when you watch Matthew Stafford play, he no longer is mobile. He can't move.
Well, and he's been hinting at and talking about retirement. He might just hang him up.
And he's beat up. So unfortunately for the Rams, unless you find another way to transition from Matthew Stafford to another elite quarterback. See, Stafford's 37. He's got a year maybe left. So the Rams are kind of in no man's land. And by the way, when Stafford walks away, does anyone doubt that McVay isn't going to punt on? McVay does not want to go through this again. I bet you when Stafford, because he talked about retiring a couple years ago.
Yeah.
He's got a cushy TV job with that pretty face. It wouldn't shock me if when Stafford retires in a year, if McVay's like, yeah, I'm going to go work for NBC and make a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And then he'll resurface like Jim Harbaugh.
Like when another really good gig opens up and he's recharged the batteries a little bit, and he's like, oh yeah, you know what? I could take that team and win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, he's like, I'm back. So the Rams are weird because I love the Rams' young core. I mean, their defense is the cheapest defense in the league, and it's a good defense. And guys like Kobe Turner and Jared Verse and Fisk, that's a good, fun group. And then you got, Cooper Kupp's he's not what he was, but, you got a really elite back that's young, and you got Puka Nacua when healthy. So there's a lot to like about the Rams. I just think their timeline is kind of screwy in that they have this really young, exciting core, and they've got an old-ass guy that's on the back end of his career. So can they find another quarterback? So that's a big if. The other team in the NFC that I think is very intriguing is the Niners. Do you pay Brock Purdy, 50, 60 million bucks? Do you force him to play out the final year of his contract, and then do you go down the road of franchise tags? And then also, is McCaffrey a little long in the tooth? I think Debo's washed.
I think Debo's washed, and I think McCaffrey might be done.
The Niners are the interesting one that if you said, does that window get extended a little bit? That's a real puzzler for me, because we're used to the Niners just being this stalwart team, although it kind of feels like every other year because of injuries. I just wonder, I don't know if the door is slammed shut, but I feel like it's a lot more closed than it is open. And I think this next run of teams in the NFC, I think when we're talking about the Falcons, I think when we're talking, obviously Philly's there, when you talk about the Commanders, when you talk about the Packers, I think the Bears are very interesting. I kind of feel like we're about to see, whereas the AFC is rock solid, I think we're about to see kind of a shifting of the NFC, where we've seen the Rams and we've seen the Niners and we've seen the Cowboys win 13, 14 games. I just think we're going to, over the next couple of years, I think we're going to see the rise of 2 or 3 new NFC teams that probably join Philadelphia. So I think it's going to be Philly. I think it's going to be Washington if things break their way. And then I think there's probably room for another 1 or 2 teams. And who those teams are, I think it's way more interesting. I just wish we could move Denver and the Chargers. I think if we were to take the Chargers...
Yeah, somebody did ask about Harbaugh and the Chargers, and yeah, if it's not for having to go through Mahomes, especially in that division, maybe you feel differently.
And not just Mahomes, but all those teams.
Right.
If I could be the NFL commissioner for the next 5 years, I would love to work out a trade where I give you the Niners, I'll give you the Vikings, and I'll give you, who else you want to give? You know what? Yeah, why don't I throw in like a side of the Atlanta Falcons? It's kind of a young, interesting team. I'm going to give you that.
And you're doing a full reorg.
And then you give me back the Denver Broncos. Love what Denver has cooking. You give me the Chargers with Herbert and Harbaugh. And I want the Houston Texans.
Okay.
Because I think Houston's got a shot, but they're just going to get their teeth kicked in by the better teams. I want to move those into the NFC.
And that is Sook's shifted balance of power.
And now imagine every year going to the playoffs and we're sitting there and we're thinking, oh my God, we got Buffalo, we got Baltimore, right? We got Kansas City just duking it out. And then the NFC, you give me Philly and Washington and Denver and the Chargers. And I get Herbert and Knicks and Jalen Hurts and I got Jaden Daniels. Now we got something cooking. I just feel like there's some really good AFC quarterbacks, Herbert, Knicks, and Stroud, that are just... They're just going to
be there for a while.
They're going to be there for a while, and they're just going to be lost. They're going to be the next generation of Phillip Rivers, and that stinks because those are fun teams, young, a lot of space, and they're going to continue to get better. And I think they're just going to run into the brick wall that is the elite quarterbacks in that conference.
I want to get back on our coaching carousel, continue a conversation from yesterday, but also want to get Sook's thoughts on one team who did not come up in these NFC discussions, the Seattle Seahawks, and where they fit in the up-and-coming teams discussion. We'll get to that on the other side of the break. You're listening to Primetime, 1080 The Fan.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, despite one head coaching job still available in the NFL, former Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy has announced that he will wait until the 2026 coaching cycle to try and find a head coaching job. News out of New Orleans seems to indicate that Eagles OC Kellen Moore is the favorite to land the job after he came in for his second interview on Monday. Some tough injury news over in the NBA. Lakers star Anthony Davis will be out at least a week after he strained an abdominal muscle in their loss to the 76ers on Tuesday. And the Atlanta Hawks are going to be without their forward Jalen Johnson for the rest of the season. He's having surgery to repair a torn labrum in his left shoulder. Johnson was averaging career highs in points, rebounds, and assists. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Will Ortner at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
Did you score a smart speaker over the holidays? Just ask. With Primetime on 1080 The Fan.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, Primetime, an SOB edition. Sukanik, Ortner, and Buckley here with you. Rop's still in Vegas for one more day. Maybe he comes home tonight. Maybe he comes home tomorrow. Maybe he doesn't come home at all. We will see. We'll find out.
It's like the show Lost. You don't really know. He's got that black smoke monster thing that he's going to come back with in Vegas.
Did you watch the show Lost, by the way?
I do, and I don't like. Did we ever figure out what the hell that thing was?
So that was the thing. They're
all dead, right?
I don't know, man.
Yeah,
It was open to interpretation at the end, but it seemed like they were all dead.
Well,
I don't know.
this is one of my weird things. I have a horrible I can watch something and then 5 years later I'll forget like 75% of it. So I watched Lost religiously for like 3 years.
Yeah, I did too.
And then I was like, and I kind of fell away, and then I kind of came back, and then it's ending. Yeah, at the end of it, they all end up in a church. They're dead. It's like some sort of purgatory hell thing.
I would think so. And then the other stuff that was like, for people who watched it from the beginning that was frustrating, do you remember like the very first episode, there was like a polar bear charging through the jungle?
Yeah.
They never explained how a freaking polar bear got there.
Did we ever figure out what the damn black thing was?
The smoke monster? I don't know. Like, I think it was, in some cases, people were saying it was like imagined, or it was a manifestation of something else. And then there's the Dharma Initiative thing, the people who were already on the island. And I don't know. I feel like I will go back and give that show a rewatch because it was so off the wall in so many ways that I'm sure I've forgotten 95% of it, and that it would be entertaining again.
Yeah,
but
in Lost, the smoke monster's true form is the Man in Black. Connected to the island, the Man in Black transformed into the smoke monster after being thrown into the heart of the island. The smoke monster's powers include shape-shifting immunities and distinctive mechanical noise.
Yeah, and like killing people.
See, I don't remember that at all.
I kind of do,
The
but
Man in
again,
Black.
I would have to go back to reevaluate that.
Yeah, well, apparently that's what the smoke monster was, and I don't remember that at all. I just remember there was like a big smoke thing that would go around, and I don't know, it did things. It was like venom or something.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I thought it like stabbed somebody, but now then, am I thinking of like the wasn't there something in Game of Thrones that did that too? There was like a nefarious smoke thing.
Well, this is my
That was the Red Lady.
Yeah, that's right.
This is my running problem that I have with good TV shows is when you have a successful show, like you only write one season, right? You're like, hey, I'll write this, and you're like, oh, it's really good, and then you write a second season, and you write a third one, you're like, I'm just out of ideas.
They just kept kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
Like, people love it. We don't know what's going on. Not sure how we're going to land the plane, but let's keep going.
That's why the best shows, in my opinion, end in 1 or 2 seasons. That's why I love like the Fargo series, True Detective.
Yeah.
Just give me like 12 episodes, wrap it up. Otherwise, you end up like kicking it down the road, and you're like, hey, what happened to the polar bear? And then you're like, I don't know. We got to explain it away. Then you end up with some horse crap thing, and it just very few shows longer than 2 or 3 seasons can land it. I give you Game of Thrones. That's why Breaking Bad's the best show, because
I love Breaking Bad.
Dexter was this way. Dexter started off so good and then just became such a pile of crap.
That was such a weird. Dexter was Jekyll and Hyde. They would pump out a good season and then they have a terrible season, followed by a good season, followed by a terrible one.
Ray Donovan, great for like 3 seasons, and then a pile of crap. I'll give you 2, maybe if it's well written, 3 seasons. After that, I guarantee Ozark, same thing.
Yeah.
It turns into a hunk of crap.
Yep.
The one exception is, and I'm sure there's others, but Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad, I thought, was just good. There were seasons better than others. I think that was like 6 seasons, right?
I think they only went.
You got 5. What
You went
about
5?
Better Call Saul? Because that gets around 5 as well.
Yeah, that got
That's
5 or 6.
pretty good.
And I actually thought that Better Call Saul took some time to take off. The really interesting thing, Sook, about Breaking Bad was that their first season was only like 6 episodes because it got cut short by the writer's strike.
Yeah.
That was like way back in the day. That was a pretty big pop culture event. And I do believe that they were going to write Jesse Pinkman out of the show. Like he was supposed to kind of be more of an ancillary fringe character initially, and he had such good chemistry with Bryan Cranston, Aaron Paul's character did, that they're like, well, now we have this writer's break to think about it. We got to figure out more ways to include him. He becomes like the soul of the show.
Yeah, 5 seasons.
Yeah.
5. And that's like, you can't go any more than that. Yellowstone's another one. First 2 seasons of Yellowstone, really good. Last 3, piles of dog crap.
I have one. And the final episode might ruin it, but The Sopranos was pretty good all the way through, and you're looking at about 7 seasons.
The one thing I'll say about The Sopranos...
And what do they say about The Sopranos? People call it one of the 2 or 3 greatest shows of all time.
The Wire also. The Wire might be 5, though.
The Wire's 5. I've watched The Wire multiple times through. I love The Wire. I like The Wire probably a little bit better than Sopranos, just because I felt like even in Sopranos, it felt like there were a couple wasted episodes here and there, like the Christopher Columbus episode, and there's a hand the strong
discrimination.
I mean, they were kind of making some stuff up that like just wasn't that interesting in the grand scheme of the show. But Sook is right. I think the shorter the better. What the problem now that ails some of these writers and some of these showrunners is that something awesome comes out, like a Squid Game that really should have just been done after 1.
Done.
And then they throw tons of money because they're like, well, look at how successful this was. We have to run it back. It's an obligation to our financial future to run it back. And I get why you need to go collect that bag, but that, not every show needs more.
No. But again, if I was Tyler Sheridan and someone gave me $8 gajillion to keep writing whatever crap I'm writing, I'd write it too. So again, not faulting you, but you usually lose me after 3 or 4 seasons. And hopefully, Sons of Anarchy is one of my favorite shows of all time. That went 7 seasons, and let me tell you, there was about 2 right in the middle. There's one where they went to Ireland. You can just fast forward.
Yeah. I watched that whole series as well, and there were some wasted episodes and maybe wasted seasons, even though overall it was really good.
Yeah, when they go to Ireland, I tell people, you know what, just skip that. Let's just move past that one and pretend. Think about it like Rocky 5. We just pretend that it didn't happen, and we move right into Rocky Balboa.
Now we're getting tons of recommendations on the fan text line. Someone says we should talk BoJack Horseman. Someone else says that was recommended Justified. I loved Justified. I'm going to give that a rewatch at some point. That's a really good one. Someone says put G-String Divas on that list. And
I remember that on HBO. That was right up there with Red Shoe Diaries.
Someone said Rome was great on HBO. I never watched that, but I
watched Rome.
I heard people say that was good, and I think it did only go 1 or 2 seasons. Someone says The Newsroom, 3 seasons is perfect.
Newsroom's great.
I thought the first season was really good, and then I thought they kind of lost their way a little bit in the later seasons.
They
which
wrapped it up.
Yeah, but they did. But they wrapped it up.
If that thing had gone any longer, I'd be here telling you that's a hunk of crap.
Well,
The Newsroom,
Sorkin too. He's in and out.
The Newsroom's worth watching.
And then someone says Sook, a show that has remained strong through the entire run is Bosch and Bosch Legacy, which starts its final season in March. I have heard good things about Bosch. I think it was on. I want to say it was on Prime, maybe, and you'd recognize the actor. He's in a lot of stuff, but it's I think it's one of these washed up cop has something to prove kind of a premise, but
that's the Man in Black from
Lost.
From Lost.
Yeah,
this dude.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, he was in the Town with Ben Affleck. Yeah, that dude's been in a million things.
Yeah, so I've heard good things about that show. I might have to check that one out.
Yeah, all right. I've never even. There's so many TV shows now. It's hard, but I love when you give me when I know it's a limited series, 12 episodes. Dude.
Well, that's the other
I
thing.
start licking my chops.
That's the other thing that's changed is like when Lost was coming out, I'm pretty sure those Lost seasons were like 20, 22, 24 episodes.
they were
Like
long.
the network TV runs back in the day used to be like 20 plus episodes a season.
Now they're like 10 or 12.
Right. So, that's where I think the dramas really find their wheelhouse. And so, yeah, that is hot Seahawks and NFL head coaching talk.
Sports. We got derailed. It happens.
It happens. And you know what? On the other side of that break, we will get back to that because I'm curious to know what direction you think the Seahawks are headed in. It does feel like there are a lot of teams in the NFC who are rapidly ascending. Where are they on that trajectory, and what needs to change for them to take that next step? We'll get to that next. Plus, some thoughts on some of the new coaching hires in the NFL coming up. Primetime, 1080 The Fan. Welcome back to Primetime Hot TV Talk. Someone jokes that one season of Chernobyl was perfect. I'm glad they didn't go for a second.
That was a great.
Chernobyl was really good.
That was really good. Again,
and obviously you couldn't do a second because of, history.
Limited series. I'm telling you. That's why the first season True Detective, the last one with Jodie Foster, Fargo does it, except for the.
I didn't watch the last one with Jodie Foster.
It was good. Night
Was
Country.
it?
Yeah, Night Country was good.
Because I heard mixed things. I heard some people didn't Rob hate it?
Rob liked it, hated it, and then I think he quit on it. I liked Night Country. I thought it was good. Jodie Foster won the Golden Globe for. Best
I like
Actress.
her. I like that show, and I have not watched that season yet.
It was
so
just
I might
a little.
have to.
It was a little mystic for some people. They didn't like it. I liked it. Again, I just like stuff that wrap 12 episodes. That's all I need. 12 episodes. Wrap it up.
Let's dive back into the NFL briefly. We're talking about some of the NFC teams that could make the jump to potentially go challenge Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl in coming years. And we're now 1 year removed from the rookie season of Mike Macdonald with the Seahawks. They go 9-8 in a pretty up and down year. There were injury things that jumped out throughout. They had a couple tough. They started off with easy scheduling, then they ran into some tough scheduling. It was a little bit, I don't know, just a little roller coastery. It didn't seem to stay very, very flat. And I know that some of that gets stabilized as things move on, but how close is this team to either breaking through to being more of a competitor, or are they further away than their record indicates?
I think the last 3 years, I think they've been 10-7. If I'm not mistaken.
Oh, did I say 9-8? Yeah,
no, they're 10-7. I think they're 10-7 pretty much every year, and they're a game away from the postseason every year. So, how close they are to being contenders, I think you're a ways. How close you are to being a playoff team? One game. And I do think if you're Seattle, I think you like the way things are going. I think you saw a defense get better and better because the last couple of years, the problem has been the rush defense. It's been god awful. And I think as the season went on and you saw Mike Macdonald's scheme kind of start to take hold, and I think going to get Ernest Jones you got rid of both of your linebackers. You brought in two linebackers to be your starters, and both of those guys by the end of the year were gone. Thanks for coming. Get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
And I think the addition of Ernest Jones, who was a nice player, he just was a cap casualty in two places, one in Tennessee and one in the Rams. I think you saw when he came into that lineup, I'm not saying he was Roquan Smith, but he was that level of player, like what he meant to that defense when he went over to Baltimore.
Yeah.
Like he was a real difference maker. And so I think when you look at the defensive side of things, I think there's a lot to like. Leonard Williams still plays at a high level. I think you have a really bright young secondary. You got some studs back
They're pretty good.
And so I like the defense, and the defense got better. And I would assume that under Mike Macdonald, this defense is going to continue to get better. I think, look at Vic Fangio, right? I think people saw Fangio come in and they were like, is this really? Yeah, it takes a while. But you saw Seattle really adapt to the scheme. So to me, I think the defense sets itself up really well, and a lot of young, manageable contracts. I think the defense is fine. I think the question mark goes to the offense. And I think bringing in Clint Kubiak is going to help because I like Geno Smith. I know it pisses Rob off. Geno Smith is a good quarterback when he has time to throw and can push the ball downfield. I'm telling you, for the last 3 years, Geno Smith has been a good quarterback. But a lot like Jared Goff, you need to do two things. You got to be able to protect him, and you got to be able to run the ball.
And they can't do either right now.
They can't do either one. When you see Detroit that doesn't have a run game, he looks bad. When the Rams' run game fell apart, remember when Todd Gurley's knee turned to dust?
Yeah.
What happened to the Rams' offense? It died because he needs, when you are a statue quarterback, and Geno's not as bad as Goff, but he's not a mobile guy. He's a guy that needs to stand in the pocket, deliver the ball downfield. And if you can't protect, and believe me, their O-line can't protect. It's arguably the worst O-line in the NFL. I mean, they suck.
It was a rough go.
And when you can't run the ball, and you can't work play action, and you can't pick up pressure. And by the way, they weren't even necessarily getting blitzed. They just couldn't block four guys. Geno Smith had less time to throw than I think just about any other quarterback in the NFL. You look at his pressure rate, sky high. It was an abomination.
Yeah.
So
Which really hamstrings what you want to do offensively.
Yeah.
When you don't have the time, you can have the greatest ideas and schemes in the world. If you don't have time, none of it matters.
So you bring in Clint Kubiak, and Clint Kubiak comes from his father's coaching tree. Sean McVay, remember at the beginning of the year when we said New Orleans had one of the worst O-lines in the NFL, and for like 3 weeks they were scoring like a ton of points, and we're like, how are they doing with the O-line? Run the ball. Kamara had a resurgence. Why? They run the ball. So trust me, Seattle will run the ball. They're going to run that wide zone scheme, and hell or high water, they will run the ball and they will play action. So that alone should help Geno Smith. Now the question becomes, do you literally have enough O linemen? I think you have your left tackle in Cross, who did have his struggles this year. I think he's a really good left tackle. Outside of that, Abe Lucas.
When he's healthy, he's good. He's just
I
never
think he's
healthy.
okay. I don't think he's great. I think he's serviceable. I think the inside line, and this is the problem with Seattle. This is like Cincinnati. They have spent capital. They draft interior O linemen and they suck. They just cannot. They just can't figure it out. So that is a huge question mark. I think Kubiak and his run scheme, because you see what Washington did this year, you can hide bad O lines. You can with scheme and just kind of the nature of your run game. You can hide a wonky O line. I don't know if you can hide a terrible O line. So I think Kubiak coming in, but they have to find a way to get better, whether that's keeping Abe Lucas healthy. And my God, find a way to find some interior linemen just somewhere, anywhere. Like Tyler Lockett's going to come off the books. I think Metcalf is a bit of a waste. I just think he is a flashy guy that's kind of a one-trick pony. I think
does he have could you get something for him?
He's got 1 year left at
well,
about 18.
If that's the case, then
at about 18 million. But I think Smith and Jigba is your best weapon.
He's going to be really good.
I just honestly think at some point you move on from Lockett. I think you move on from Metcalf and you redistribute that money and you build an O-line and you go on a run game and you don't need. I just think there's wasted money. I think that you need to trim some of this fat. And then the biggest question about Seattle is Geno Smith. Is Geno good enough? And here is the problem with Seattle, and it's the problem with 75% of the teams in the NFL. I believe that if you got a good O-line and this defense continued to improve, I think you could win 12 games. I mean, they win 10 every year. I think you'd win 12 games, and I think you could win a playoff game. And I think when you ran into an elite team, I think you would get exposed. So herein lies the ultimate rub that everyone has is you don't seemingly have a path to get a quarterback because you can't trade for one. You're not bad enough to draft one. So whether you hit on one, you're going to either have to rely on Geno to be the guy that gets you over the hump,
or run into a Brock Purdy somehow,
or run into a Brock Purdy. So I think the future is bright for Seattle. I don't think it's high noon bright.
Yeah.
I think it's let's go with like a 5:30 sort of sun. You can lay out and you're not going to get a sunburn.
It feels a little similar to the Blazers after the Western Conference Finals appearance, where like you're going to be good enough to be in the conversation, but you're not going to get there. The problem is they've been looking for interior O-line help since James Carpenter and J.R. Sweezy.
And they like I said, they spend draft capital on it and they just miss. So maybe just go hire a guy that can evaluate interior offensive linemen, because whatever you're doing ain't working, because the guys you draft and the guys you bring in suck. They just flat out, they suck.
Well, they also they signed Williams this year, a center that had completely destroyed his leg to the point where
he retired in the middle of the year.
He literally played for 3 or 4 games, was like, I can't do this anymore. A lot of the young guys, like they've got the Michigan kid playing center this year, and he was okay for like the 3 or 4 games. If they're ever going to take that next step, it has to be finding at least one guard, if not a center and a guard that can make that transition. Look at Kansas City. They went out and they drafted Creed Humphreys, and they drafted, is it Thomas, the kid out of Tennessee, who's their now right guard?
Trey Smith.
Thank you. They made those 2 picks right after the Super Bowl where they got boat raced by Tampa Bay, and that was the difference. And they signed Joe Thuney.
Yeah.
That completely put them back into a conversation of not only are they in the Super Bowl, but they're actually winning it. Not that the Seahawks are that far,
well, the Seahawks
but
aren't
it can be
paying
done
Geno
in a year.
Smith, and you should be able to allocate resources to an interior line. Lockett's going to come off the books. The next version of this to me in 2 years is Lockett's gone, Metcalf's gone. Rebuild your O-line. You have your left tackle. Everyone else on that O-line is replaceable, and let your defense continue to grow and develop, spend your resources, draft picks and free agency money, rebuild your O-line. And I think if you do that, you win 11 and 12 games. I think you can win that division. I think the Niners window is closing.
I
think Stafford's going to be gone for a year. And Arizona, I think, is a bit of a lost ship. Seattle should be able to win that division. In the next 2 to 3 years, they should be the best team in that division if they act smartly and they let this defense grow and develop. But ultimately, I think the Geno Smith thing probably handcuffs you a little bit.
Yeah.
So if I'm Seattle, I'm literally spending a second and a third round pick every year, somewhere along second to fourth, drafting a quarterback and hoping that I hit on a Dak Prescott.
Yep.
Because I think Geno, you signed to a manageable deal again. You keep signing them those manageable deals, kicking the can down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And, whether that's Jackson Dart or whether you like a Dylan Gabriel or whatever, right? Keep drafting in that second, third, fourth round and try to find, because look about it, like Russell Wilson was I think a third round pick.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dak was a third or a fourth round pick. Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant, right? I think you just keep swinging on quarterbacks in those mid rounds. I don't think you take them in the 6th and 7th round because those almost never work out.
No, but if you do it every year, you should come up with something at some point.
And you find one. And if you find one, I think all of a sudden Seattle's fortunes are completely different. So I think there is a lot to like. And I think Mike McDonald is going to be the guy. And I love the Kubiak thing because you need to pair, especially with a quarterback like Geno, you have to pair your run game with your pass game. And it's a bold statement. I don't know if there was a team, well, maybe the Bears, that did a poor job of marrying your run game with your passing game.
And I know that we're up against it. We got to go. But just for the layperson, because I heard Schottenheimer mention that at his press conference.
Yep.
When you talk about marrying your running game and your passing game, what exactly does that mean to the average fan?
So, again, when we talk about marrying your run game, do we look the same when we're running the ball and do we look the same when we're throwing the ball?
So essentially, can they be disguised as one another?
Yes.
Okay.
So if the Texans, by the way, did a piss poor job of this as well.
Part of the reason Slowick is out of a
so
job.
people look at the Texans, they say, hey, they didn't run the ball that poorly. Actually, they did. They had one of the worst success rates in the NFL with running. So when I know you are going to, you line up in this formation on first and second down and you're going to throw the ball, cool. I know what you're doing. If I know that you are going to be a run team, I know when you get into this look, I know when you get into this down, you are going to throw or you're going to run, right? The whole point is to be multiple. Buffalo did this an amazing job this year, right? Buffalo can come out and when they run that 6-man O-line, and if you want to go big on you, they can throw out of that.
Mm-hmm.
It was a perfect marriage, and that's where play action comes into pass, because especially if you have an O-line that can't protect, right? If I tell you that I'm going to do a 5 and a 7-step drop, because what does Geno Smith do well? He pushes the ball downfield. Right, that is his strength. He is not a dink and dunk guy. Geno wants to throw the ball downfield. Problem is, we can't protect, right? We can't just drop back and throw 5 and 7-step drops and throw the ball 10 yards down the field.
Right, doesn't have that time.
So I need my run game to disguise what I'm doing. I have to live in the world where you think that there is a threat of me running the ball. When my play action brings my linebackers in, it backs my secondary off, it gives me those opportunities. And Seattle had none of it. I just think Ryan Grubb was way in over his head. I think he came from a world in Washington where running the ball was an ancillary thing, and it was Penix, and occasionally we're going to run the ball. And if you look at, again, the successful teams in the NFL the last 4 or 5 years, what do they all do well? They run the ball. And running the ball is the best thing you can do for a young quarterback, and it's the best thing you can do for an average quarterback. So when you can't run the ball...
Helps your defense out, too.
And when you can't run the ball consistently, and you sure as hell can't drop back, you have a horrible scheme. And I thought that's with kind of marrying those concepts together. No one did it better than Shanahan's offense. When the Niners were really cooking, right? When they had Juszczyk and they had Kittle, and then you had your 2 receivers on the end... I don't care if it's 3rd and 6 or if it was, 2nd and 9.
Could make everything look the same.
You could make everything look the same.
Yeah.
And when I can do that, that's what keeps the defense on their toes. Otherwise, you end up in Kansas City and Spags. When Spags knows you have to throw, and when these defensive coordinators know you have to throw, and you don't have an elite quarterback, dude, it's a death sentence.
Yeah.
It's an absolute death sentence. So the run game has to keep it honest, and that's why it has to pair well. Your concepts have to work well with that. And then can you take your run looks and still have solid pass protection off of it?
Little football education with Suk as the Seahawks try to make the next step going into next season. We'll get back to sports in a little while. Coming up later, Stupid or Savvy, some Super Bowl betting previews. But coming up next, it's time for In the News. We have multiple standoffs downtown, an animal rescue, and math and reading ranks. It's all coming up. But first, Orton Sports Center.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, 3 games going on in the NBA. It's the end of the first quarter in Charlotte. The Nets are leading the Hornets 26-19. There's a minute to go left in Indianapolis. You've got the Pacers. They're up 37-29 over the Detroit Pistons. TJ McConnell just made an 8-foot two-pointer there. Then we're heading over to Washington, where the Wizards are continuing to struggle against the Raptors. There's 2:43 left to go in the first quarter. The Raptors are up by 15 points. Yes, 15. It is 25-10 in that one. We're about to get underway in Boston. The Celtics are taking on the Bulls. Boston is favored by 14.5. The total is set at 230.5 points there. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Will Ortner at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
Jump back to earlier
got no cookie, no cookie.
Welcome back to Primetime, an SOB edition. Sue Gortner and Buckley with you today. Rop's supposed to be back tomorrow. We'll see about that. But as for right now, it is Wednesday. It is January 29th. January 29th. It is time for...
God, it's almost February?
Yeah, it is time for In the News. I'm your stand-in newsman. Hello. Investigative journalist behind the glass, Will Ortner. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
What are you investigating today, Will?
Right now, Livy Dunn's Instagram.
Oh,
Little
nice.
bit of Shane Gillis's girlfriend's Instagram, too.
What's going on over there with her?
Her name is Grace. It is a quality lookup, and you will say, why is she with him?
Well, you know why she's with him.
Oh, no, she loves
It could be for love. We don't know.
Is that the same one that Shane Gillis took to Christian McCaffrey's wedding?
Yes.
I remember seeing Shane Gillis with all the 49er bros at Christian McCaffrey's wedding when he married Miss Universe.
Oh, yes.
She is, she's fun.
Easy on the eyes?
She's easy on the
imagine.
eyes.
She's tall.
Guys, just make a lot of money. Make a lot of money.
What are we doing here, Will?
We got a good idea what Shane's doing.
I'm gonna say, and here's the best part.
Gotta be funny.
He doesn't post her on Instagram. She posts him, and she posts him a
You don't
lot.
have to be funny. You just have to have a lot. Yeah, she's with him because.
Well, but he had money because he's funny.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I'm just saying be funny, you know?
And being funny works for some people.
Yeah, I think having money works a little.
Well, look, I'm learning money works more and more.
Trust me, if Shane Gillis loses all his money, something tells me his gal's not sticking around due to his great ha-ha and hee-hees.
You don't know that?
Yeah,
I don't know if I like your nihilism.
Yeah, you're telling me the
Hee-hee,
Instagram
baby
model
guy.
influencer is sticking with the guy who's dead broke, but he's hilarious.
Maybe.
Okay.
Isn't that what love is, Sue?
Yeah, I don't know if what they have is love, but all right,
It's just a different kind
it's
of
a different
love.
kind of love.
It's the start of the Chinese Lunar New Year.
Yes, Year of the Snake.
The Year of the Snake. Now, do you know what year you were when you were...
I'm the horse.
I believe I am the ox.
1978, I believe, is because at the Chinese restaurants they have the
Yeah, they have a little wheel usually.
yeah. So I believe that is the horse,
So this year...
which is kind of lame to be honest with you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm the year of the horse, which
Year of the Snake this year, and I don't know, I perceive Year of the Snake as bad, but I'm reading that Year of the Snake is all about shedding that bad energy.
oh okay.
So
Yeah, because there's the rat, ox, tiger, rabbit, dragon, snake, horse, goat, monkey, cock, dog, and pig. You be the year of the goat. Come on, let's go. So next year, I think then would be the year of the horse.
back to the horse again.
I think we're back to the horsey.
Today is Curmudgeon's Day.
All right, go curmudgeons.
It is also Kansas Day.
Hey, look at that.
Shout out Rob.
Rob's not here. Let's be honest, Rob's a bit of a curmudgeon.
He is a curmudgeon. Do you think he knows it's Kansas Day?
No. Because he's not doing any sort of the award-winning show prep when he's not hosting the show.
Although, you know, maybe back in an American city, Salina, Kansas, they taught in school that this was their Kansas becomes a state day because it is the anniversary of them becoming the 34th state in the union. So
Well,
maybe he knows.
We can float out tomorrow and be like, hey, do you know what yesterday was?
Yeah.
I'm guessing no. But it is, I'm a little disappointed that on the curmudgeon and Kansas Day that he's not here.
It's also Corn Chip Day.
Oh, that's like a Dorito. I mean, any corn chip, right? Like a Dorito?
Yeah.
Anything like that?
I mean, you have corn, you have potato, but those are the main chips, right?
yeah, right. You got the potato chip and
The
then
potato
the corn,
base or corn base are kind of your two
corn
mains.
base. Yeah, between
yeah.
the two, I think I'm taking the corn chip
I think
if
I
I
have
have
to.
to. I got more options with the corn chip.
It's also National Puzzle Day. Anyone in the Suk family puzzlers?
I've puzzled before. I'm not going to lie. I don't mind a puzzle, but I usually lose interest after, maybe 45 minutes.
There's something I find kind of like therapeutic about doing a puzzle, especially if you like, if you just have music, you don't have other stuff on. Like, it's a great, we're at the beach, we're at the cabin, and the weather
There you
sucks
go.
activity.
Yeah.
You know?
If there's nothing else going on, that I'm
But if
with
it's a
you.
nice day, I'm not staying inside doing a puzzle.
But I'm with you, like a rainy day. You can look. I'm saying this. You can convince me to puzzle.
Yeah.
I will never be the one that suggests puzzle. But if my lady's like, hey, make this puzzle with me, I'm like, all right, I'm not going to be like, no, that's dumb. We'll go in there, throw some corners first, and kind of hunt and peck. When I was a
Mama-
kid, though, I used to
Oh.
I'd get like the WWE puzzles. I had a Hulk Hogan puzzle, an Ultimate Warrior, and then I would
Nice.
glue them to like cardboard.
Yeah, yeah.
And then like pin them to the
Uh-huh.
wall.
Very
Nice.
badass of you.
Mama Ortner, big puzzler.
Yeah?
I think it's an old person activity.
Hey,
Well, it just is. I'm old.
Tends to be.
I'll bet you Rop could be. I could see the Rop and Nurse Nice. I could see them puzzling.
They whip out the card table. He kind of walks by with his coffee, puts a couple pieces in, and keeps walking.
I could see that.
Yeah, I can too. Whose birthday party would you rather attend today, Oprah's or Tom Selleck's?
Oh, Tommy Selleck.
I think so too.
No offense, but like Oprah seems fine. But what am I going to talk to Oprah about?
Yeah, but I bet her party would rock.
I want to hang out with Tom Selleck. I like Tom Selleck.
I do too.
I want just somewhere to like hang out and talk about mustaches and Magnum PI. Tom Selleck is like underrated badass. Like I'll talk to Tom Selleck all day, and he seems like a pretty cool dude.
So we had a couple breaking news stories here in Portland that had to do with standoffs. I don't know if you saw any of
we
this
had big
today.
standoff news. Yeah, man in custody after firing some shots.
That's right. So what we're reading here is that over on Northwest 5th and Gleason in Portland's Old Town, around 12:15 this afternoon, officers responded to reports of an adult man pointing a gun at a passerby in downtown Portland. He apparently then fired that gun and then hopped on a bus.
Yeah, and then like he held up in the bus.
And then they got everybody else off the bus. They got the driver off the bus. Apparently, he threw the gun out of the bus, but he was unwilling to leave the bus himself. Yeah. So there was your standoff.
Which I don't really understand. I thought the whole point of a standoff was that like I've got a threat.
Right.
But to my man's credit, he let everyone else off the bus. He threw the gun out. But at that point, you've kind of played all your cards.
Yeah,
You're
I can't say I
puzzle
support
pieces.
this guy, but thank you for complying, I guess, by the end of this thing.
Yeah, I mean, they said that he could face kidnapping charges too.
Oh, yeah, because because of all the passengers.
All the passengers.
Yeah.
Although he eventually let him go. But I'm just saying, if you're gonna commandeer the bus, you got to keep the hostages or the gun. Otherwise,
what do you have to work with?
Just leave.
Yeah.
If you let everyone go and you drop your gun, at that point, just get off the bus. Like, hey, hands up, it's over. Or take the bus on a joyride, or at least do something. You can't just lay on the floor of the bus and be like, I'm not coming out. They will come get you.
Yeah, this lasted a couple hours. The suspect was still inside the bus as of 2:15 p.m.
And I also don't understand, once he dropped the gun, why didn't the police why don't they just walk in there and get him?
Is there an idea that he has something else that you're concerned about?
But he could go back. Did he throw the gun out or just?
Yeah, he
dropped
dropped it
out the window of the bus.
Yeah.
So
maybe he has a second gun.
Yeah, but then I guess you can't assume anything if you're the police in that
They
situation.
flashbanged him and then threw the smoke bomb, and then at that point, once that flashbang goes off, you're not doing anything.
Probably deserve that.
Can't see anything. Your ears are shot, and then my buddy's a cop. He says that's when the car gives birth, because he usually go out a window. But I guess this is a bus. You probably just
TriMet said of the bus driver, we want to commend our operator for their bravery and resolve in safely handling this frightening situation. Our thoughts are with them, as well as the riders on the bus and others who were in the vicinity of the incident when this senseless act took place. We are grateful that no one was physically hurt and thank the police for their quick response.
Oh, yeah, dude, you're on a bus and all of a sudden some nut job comes in with a gun. I'll tell you what, I'm going out the back of that bus or the window. I'm not waiting around.
I just think of,
Deuces, I'm gone.
Yeah, I'm not hanging around for the movie Speed situation where we're like, we're off, and now we got to keep above 55. And
now, dude gets on a bus with a gun. I'm assuming that that's not ending the way this one went down, and I'm out.
Will, have you seen Speed?
If I get clipped on my way out, so be it. I'm leaving.
No, but is it like Ambulance?
I don't know what Ambulance is like. You should go back and watch the movie Speed.
Is that the one that everyone hates, or is that Crash?
Oh, I think people hated
Crash
it won Best Picture.
It won Best Picture.
Yeah, I know, but
I think
isn't that one you look back on who it beat, and it's like a kind of a Shakespeare in Love type deal?
I would just say that you couldn't have two movies that are further apart than Crash and Speed. One deals with racial inequalities and stereotypes in the world.
Either.
The other one is Keanu Reeves driving a bus.
Yeah,
I haven't seen either one.
Speed is the one you need to watch. It's Keanu Reeves, who he is a cop, and he gets on a bus that it will explode if it goes below 55 miles an hour.
That is the first time in the history of movie or radio or anything that someone has compared Speed and the movie Crash.
Didn't
to
compare
be fair,
them.
they sound alike.
Did not compare them. Just asked a question. Sounds like,
and one of them, and Crash does involve a bus crash,
and
right?
usually when you speed, you do crash. Haven't seen either. Just remember one was not super well liked after the fact.
I see how you connected the dots.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that you should have connected the dots.
And no, Crash doesn't involve a bus crash.
Isn't there
It's like four
I
separate.
thought I remember like Matt Dillon embracing someone under like a
Matt
wrecked
Dillon.
car or something like that.
It's a wrecked car, but again, it's an SUV. Never mind. It's like
That's the
four.
point.
It's like four separate stories that all have racial prejudice, and they all end up tying back together at the end. And no, it doesn't involve a bus crash.
So the crash is a metaphor.
Yes, and that's Sandy Bullock that does get. Or no, it's not Sandy Bullock. It's a black lady who has been racially profiled and actually assaulted by an officer, Matt Dillon, who ends up saving her from dying, but she doesn't want him to save her because
Spoiler.
it's
Because
the
he's
cop
a POS white cop.
yes. So it's a whole thing.
Now that we're back into movies,
And
I'm
Yes,
not
it's
going to
a-
watch that movie.
It's a good movie and you should watch it.
Which one, Speed or Crash?
Crash is much better than Speed.
disagree. Oh man, we also had another standoff in St. John's neighborhood. According to police, a wanted and potentially armed suspect was barricaded in a home on North Hudson Street near St. John City Park. They got the Special Emergency Reaction Team and Crisis Negotiation Team there responding. There have been no injuries reported, but they have closed off the area from Charleston Ave to John Avenue. Residents being asked to avoid the area and stay locked indoors.
Stuff popping off, man. Be safe out there, people.
Well, we do have some positive news. We have an animal rescue and also some potential snow coming. That's next in the news on The Fan.
This is The Fan.
Welcome back to Prime Time. Not too much time left here in the news, and as it is in the news, I feel it's my duty to give you the weather because we do have some serious weather coming in this week.
Oh.
And when I say serious weather, not anything anyone should be seriously worried about, but something that obviously seriously impacts the city of Portland when it does happen.
We screwed here. Is it time to run to the hills?
Well, KGW has issued a weather impact alert for days Monday and Tuesday of next week due to the possibility of low elevation snow.
Oh, no.
We don't do well with that. Last time we
No,
got
we
Klondike Ortner out of it. That was the last time, wasn't it?
Yeah, I do think we got the Klondike Willow.
And it was this time around last year, I think? Perhaps?
Snow and ice doesn't really
And
stop
Buckley
me.
refused to come get drunk with me at my buddy's house. which-
That's right. You were having wine chicken, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and a lot of wine to go with it. Buckley was stuck here, and I was like, just come on to my buddy's
Well,
house.
no,
right
I wasn't
over the road.
stuck. I believed that I could get home, and ultimately I did. It just took way longer than it should have. I should have come and gone drunk with you and your buddy. That would have been the better.
It's good times. That's the
better
benefit
play.
of having a buddy that lives side roads from the station. When
So-
in doubt, just head on over and we just start heavily drinking. And it was a cool part because one of his neighborhood bars right across the street also just stayed open because people couldn't go
'Cause they
anywhere.
could?
It was a great night. I don't remember much of it, but it was a great night.
So Friday, going to be a wet one in the Cascades with heavy snow falling up in the mountains. Ski area is going to see 12 to 20 inches of new snow by Saturday morning. That's a lot. And so what you need to know about around this area, though, is that the snow level falls to around 5,000 feet on Friday, 2,000 feet on Saturday, and 1,000 feet on Sunday. And then because of low temperatures, snow is supposed to stay around 1,000 feet through the middle of next week.
Oh, all right.
If we get it, it's going to stay for a little while because we're not supposed to get above 41 degrees until Wednesday or Thursday next week.
All right. So just basically keep an eye on it.
I just want to warn you now, Soup. I am your producer on Monday. You will be having a show.
Beg to differ. You think you coming in is a requirement for me
Yeah,
coming in?
you can show up and crack the mic.
I did it last year, and Dusty had to come in.
Dude, I'll tell you right now. This is my hand to God. My determining factor of whether or not I come in or not is whether or not there's enough on the 205 bridge that is plowed to the sides. If they have to plow the snow anywhere on that 205 bridge and you have a nice little ramp, I will tell everyone at this company, kiss my big white ass. I'm not going over that bridge. I cannot see that without thinking about that poor dude that just slid out a little bit and then Dukes of Hazzard it off the 205 bridge. I think honestly, you want to talk about being sued? How is that legal? How is it a good idea for us to plow a bridge and then basically make a ski jump when you plummet however many feet into the icy river?
Yeah,
That just seems insanity.
I don't get how. I mean, once that happens one time, aren't you never doing that again?
I would certainly hope so. So that's how, they do that,
That
live.
predates me.
You do that live. That was like 3 years ago. You
It's
do
before my time.
You do that live look on the bridge with the camera. That'll be mine. I'll look at the bridge and be like, nope. Like, yeah, someone go shovel that off. Yes, once there's a buildup there, nope, not this guy. Not doing it.
Well, there's your weather report. We've essentially run out of time to discuss how Oregon is falling behind in both reading and math, but you probably already knew
we
that.
are anyways.
So that's going to do it for In the News, brought to you, as always, by the Advocates. If you've been hurt or injured, you don't need a lawyer. You need an advocate. You can visit them at advocateslaw.com. Coming up, the Hot 5 at 5, then Stupid or Savvy, Super Bowl bets preview. Primetime, 1080 The Fan.
The forecast calls for wet Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, despite one head coaching job still being available in the NFL, former Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy has decided to wait until the 2026 coaching cycle to find a head coaching job. The news out of New Orleans right now seems to indicate that the Eagles' OC Kellen Moore is the favorite to land the job after he came in for his second interview on Monday. Still no announcement on who they plan to hire out there. Right now, you have a couple games in the association going on, all still in the first half, wrapping it up with a couple minutes left to go in the second quarter in all three of these games. Right now, the Brooklyn Nets are leading 48-35 in Charlotte over the Hornets. Then in Indianapolis, you've got the Pacers leading the Pistons 66-55. Jalen Duren just had a nice little dunk there to get the Pistons to only be down by 4. And then you've got the Wizards. They're finally starting to score some points. They're still trailing the Raptors 52-34. That one is in Washington, D.C. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Will Ortner at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
Slam Dunk in Vegas is our nationwide.
Mediocrity deserves applause.
Isaac Robb,
I'm miserable. I had to get up at 10 o'clock this morning.
Jason Sakanet.
I'm a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude.
Primetime on 1080 The Fan.
Welcome back. Hour number 3, Primetime. Isaac and Souk. No Isaac. He is still in Las Vegas, so you get one more SOB edition before Isaac comes back tomorrow, or doesn't.
I heard in Will's update that another coordinator has turned down the Saints job. You know how bad it is when just sitting OCs are like,
Not interested.
And then Mike McCarthy, who doesn't have a job, is like, So you've had Mike McCarthy, Joe Brady, basically Cliff Kingsbury. Like, not like Mike McCarthy, anyone's beating down his door. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to wait till next year. No one wants that job. If you want to know how bad the Saints situation is from ownership to cap space, realize that no one wants that job. We were debating, like, is the Raiders the worst job? Wrong.
It seems like that would be the Saints.
That would be the Saints.
And it's interesting to me because it's not been that long since they won a Super Bowl. I mean, it's been a while, but there have been other teams with much longer droughts.
Sure.
It's a vibrant city that loves their team. Yep. Is it just that the ownership is like is hard to work with? Like, why is that a bad job?
Ownership's wonky, and they're just in a really bad spot right now. They spent a bunch of money on Derek, and really, even when Drew Brees was there, they have managed their cap maybe the worst of any team in the last 15 years in the NFL. There was a dip there, even with Peyton and Brees, where they weren't very good because they had like $80 million in dead cap money, and the same thing. They're in salary cap hell already, and they've paid Derek Carr, so you don't have a quarterback. Your roster isn't that good, and you don't have a lot of future draft picks. Like they've been. I know they finally traded like Lattimore to get some back, but in the years past, they keep moving up in draft. Like they moved up in the draft to get Olave, who's a fine player, but like they're obsessed with this idea. It's like if we just get one or two good players, they haven't really figured out like actually building a roster, and draft picks are kind of important. So just from top to bottom, there's no. We always talk about synergy and like continuity. The Saints just don't have it, and it's just a mess, and people don't want to jump into a situation where it's probably going to take you 2 or 3 years to untangle this. And in today's world of the NFL, you don't get 2 or 3 years, especially if you're an unproven coordinator. Your ass is probably fired by the time you get all that stuff untangled.
The other thing I didn't realize is just how long Mickey Loomis has been in that job. I mean, he's been their director of football ops since 2001.
Yes.
And so I know that it's just Gail Benson now, who was the husband that passed. What was it?
Mr. Benson.
But Tom
Yeah,
Benson.
Tom Benson.
But I mean, I don't know if Gail's going to be the ouster, or maybe it's the team president. Does Loomis just need to be ousted and start this thing over?
Yes. It's
yeah.
And I know they built a They built a Super Bowl team, but they've been to one. They won it. It was a great upset. And since then, I mean, the best thing they ever had is we know quarterbacks and coaches mask a lot of problems. And Sean Payton and Drew Brees masked a lot of problems.
Yep.
But I'm telling you, they just don't have a good sense of what they're doing. Dude, they got like $70 million dead dollars so there's just no room. There's no wiggle room. And they don't have a sense on how to build a roster, how to draft, how to allocate their resources. And they gave a bunch of money to Derek Carr, and you don't want to be tied to any of those things.
I think the funny juxtaposition is looking at a team that went all in the Rams and were able to win the Super Bowl, and then looking at a team that went all in the New Orleans Saints, and they had an opportunity to win the Super Bowl. I mean, shoot, against the Rams, they're a pass interference away from getting to go and play the Patriots in the Super Bowl, right? Like, they were that close, and they just kept throwing money and kicking the can down the road. The difference is the Rams won one, and then they've gotten lucky now with their draft picks, and the Saints didn't win one and didn't get lucky with their draft picks.
Then they give away their draft picks.
Yeah.
They're in a constant state. There's no team that moves up in the draft more than the Saints.
And that is not a recipe for long-term success.
Moving up in the draft once in a while to grab a quarterback or you find...
To get the missing piece, to complete your run or whatever.
But when you need to rebuild your roster, you move down in the draft. You don't move up, especially for, no offense, but for like Marcus Davenport and for the Chris Olaves of the world. Yeah. You don't do that. You just don't. That's not how smart franchises operate.
Let's get to the Hot 5 at 5.
Hot topics, hot opinions,
Oh, golly, I'm hot today.
and hot air. It's time for the Hot 5 at 5.
That's hot.
The Hot 5 at 5 on Primetime with Isaac and Sue.
No, I mean it. That's very hot.
The Hot 5 at 5 with Isaac and Sue. Brought to you on The Fan by Victorico's Mexican Food. Discover Victorico's new savory menu items. Order in store, online, or get it delivered straight to your door at victoricos.com. Number 5.
Let's start in the hockey world, Sook, and not even on the ice, but in the courts. Have you seen the drama going on with the Utah Hockey Club?
Yes, we don't. They have a name, but they don't have a name.
Yeah, they were all ready to roll with the Yetis or the Yeti.
Everyone knew that Yeti was their preferred
That was
choice.
the favorite. That's what they were going to go with. And they began submitting their paperwork to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and they got rejected because of the Yeti coolers. And so now they're having to pivot, and they're asking fans to decide between these three names: the Utah Hockey Club, which they're currently going with, the Utah Mammoth, or the Utah Wasatch.
Yeah, because the Wasatch Mountain.
Wasatch?
Yeah, because they were going to go with the Blizzard, and it turned out that the Blizzard had problems, and then they were going to
go the Dairy Queen?
And then they were I don't remember what the Blizzard was. I think it was actually another smaller team, and then they were going to go with Venom. The Utah Venom for like rattlesnakes.
Yeah.
Well, Venom is a sporting goods company like that sells like the UFC.
Yeah.
So they keep running into
Number 4.
they keep running into trademark problems.
Well,
Although the Utah Wasatch, I don't know.
the Mammoth is all right.
Mammoth, go with Mammoth. You got a cool mascot.
Listen, hockey club, that feels like a whole football club thing, like with soccer. Like, don't cop out and do hockey club.
The Yeti would have been cool. I'm
It would've been
hoping
cool.
they can figure out a way to work because Yeti would be cool.
Maybe they can still make it part of their mascot. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, you were doing a little bit of NFL realignment on the fly earlier. How about this? Former head coach in the NFL, Bill Belichick, says the Lombardi Trophy should be renamed. He says it should be the Tom Brady Trophy.
Oh, Bill, go away.
Why is he bringing this up?
I don't.
Why, like,
He's trying to kiss Tom Brady's ass.
And why is he kissing Tom's ass?
Look, you're not renaming it the Brady Award.
Yeah, remember when they said we should redo the logo to be Kobe?
Yeah.
When Kobe passed?
And I'm trying to think, and I think Jerry West was open to the idea of the logo being moved.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of the last time we renamed a trophy. Like Bill Russell got named the MVP now is the Bill Russell Award.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
But they didn't change the name. They just added
Larry
to it.
Bird and Magic Johnson, Western Conference Finals and Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah. So those are just added. I don't remember the last time
We never stripped a trophy of its name.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the last time we stripped one.
And plus, as great as Tom is, like, I mean, Vince Lombardi was like the kind of the godfather of football. That's why it's named after
Well,
him.
Bill, I appreciate it. You're bringing grass back to North Carolina, so there you go. Way to go, Bill.
Some sad news out of Philadelphia. Did you see this? Where one of the Eagles fans celebrating after the game has passed away after falling off of a light pole. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that in Philly and some other cities, after celebrations, they grease.
Yes.
They grease light poles.
I thought they did that there specifically. If you saw videos of Broad Street, it was absolutely crazy after the Eagles punched their ticket to the Super Bowl. But yeah, a kid, 18-year-old student from Temple University, was celebrating and slipped, fell, and he didn't make it.
Can you imagine, like, you die in a drunken fall off a light pole?
Number 2. The Oregon Ducks just keep stacking up the accolades that don't matter. Oregon coach Dan Lanning named the recipient of the Stallings Award, which goes...
I didn't know that was a thing. By the way, I'm assuming that's named after Gene Stallings?
The article doesn't say. It probably is.
I would assume.
But it's given to the coach. It recognizes leadership, character, and achievement. So those 3 things specifically.
He's got great leadership, character, and he achieved. So I
also read earlier this week they picked up a second national championship, which is great.
Outside of the prestigious Wolf Index?
Yeah, it was. You know what? I'm sure I have it here. By the time we're done with the next one, I will have it. But yeah, 2 different publications saying that the Ducks are in fact the best team in college football.
I think Ohio State says no to that, but all right.
Let's see.
I'm trying to see if indeed the Stallings Award. There's a lot of random awards out there.
That would be it was Anderson and Hester that designated Oregon a national champion. Anderson and Hester.
Congratulations. And yes, by the way, the Stallings Award,
Gene Stallings?
Gene Stallings, by the Dallas Country Club, is the one that hands out the
why does the Dallas Country Club have a national football award that they're giving out?
I don't know. But they do, and it's
it made our news.
The annual award ceremony is at the Dallas Country Club. My guess is that Dan Lanning will not be in attendance, but there you go. I want to make sweet, sweet football love with Dan Lanning.
And number 1, the Portland Trailblazers. They win their 5th out of 6. They beat the Milwaukee Bucks at home to open their homestand. A monster night from Denny Avdia. He scores 30, probably his best night as a Blazer, and the tank hasn't started yet.
No, I mean, they're in a weird spot here in that they show signs of life, and you got to be careful because this team's going nowhere as constructed. We know this is a really, really good draft, and you really are searching for a top 5 odds of landing one of those top picks. 6 right there, anything by 6, and you're kind of out of it. So, and right now you're at that precipice where you're sniffing around that 6, 7, 8, 9 spot. So, I mean, while that win last night was fun, I still got to believe that come post trade deadline, come post All-Star break, whether vets get moved or not at the deadline, I got to believe some people are going to start having some quote contusions. Like you
deep finger contusion.
You cannot allow this team to end up with 25 wins and the 8th worst record in the NBA.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what are we doing? You're just that is the definition of spinning your tires. But for the last couple of games, if you're a Blazer fan, it's been great because they look good, and that was that was their best win of the year. I mean, and they swept the Bucks. So
that's right.
And Ayton looked good. When's the last time?
Dominating. Well, it's because he's over that deep finger contusion.
Well, supposedly he's got a real rub against Giannis.
Yeah.
After he got embarrassed in the NBA Finals, I guess Ayton gets all pissy when he plays Giannis.
Maybe
he did have 39 last night.
Maybe he should get pissy more often.
I don't think he cares.
Yeah. The Hot 5 at 5 is brought to you by Victor Rico's Mexican Food. A hit with the whole family. Order in-store, online, or delivered to your door at victorricos.com. When you think flavor, think Victor Rico's. Super Bowl matchups that matter, plus a betting preview. Stupid or savvy? We'll get into that next, coming up on The Fan. Back to Primetime. Get back into a little bit of Super Bowl talk here. We were talking about the teams that kind of could be next in line to make Super Bowl runs and such, but back to this game in general, or this game specifically, not in general, but some of the matchups that are going to matter in this one. And you and I on the walk-in today were talking about the quarterback and how really I think that Jalen Hurts is pretty good, and he's obviously not Patrick Mahomes, but you think the discrepancy between them is pretty significant.
Yeah.
As far as, obviously I'm not saying that you expect Jalen to be Patrick Mahomes, but I didn't think there was maybe as much of a gap in this game as you do.
I think there's an enormous gap. I really do. And I know Hurts is coming off his best game that he's played all year, but make no mistake about it, Jalen Hurts is a top 10-ish quarterback. He certainly doesn't belong anywhere near the conversation of the top 4. And then you get after that, you wouldn't take him above Jaden Daniels. You wouldn't take him above Justin Herbert. You wouldn't take him above right now. He certainly didn't have the year that like Jared Goff would have. Maybe you would take him, long term.
Yeah.
I don't think you would take him over some of the young quarterback. You wouldn't take him over CJ Stroud. I think there might even be some conversation of maybe with the one guys like a Bo Nix. Jalen Hurts is really good, and he's gotten better. But Jalen Hurts is not a great scrambler. Jalen Hurts is not a great thrower of the football. He's just not. He's a good, solid quarterback. I would make the argument that I think Dak Prescott is a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts. And not that Hurts can't be great, but I think what you see here in Jalen Hurts is you see a really, really good quarterback with the best team in football built around him.
Yeah.
If you're starting a team, you would not want to build around Jalen Hurts. But you add in Saquon Barkley. I mean, and you have arguably the best O-line in the game. You have the best running back in the game. It's not even close. You probably have one of the 2 or 3 best receiving pairs in the NFL. I mean, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, that's pretty good. But A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, they're as good as anyone in the league. You have an all-pro tight end. I mean, there is no weaknesses, and it's weird to say because I like Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
But he is by far the weak link of that football team. And so when I look at these matchups, I think the biggest gap, the 2 biggest gaps would probably be Saquon Barkley to the Chiefs run game, like to the Chiefs backs, whether that's Pacheco, whether that's Pirine
or Hunt
or Hunt. I mean, look, Saquon Barkley is light years better. But outside of that, I mean, the Philly O-line, I think, is better than the Kansas City O-line, but the Kansas City O-line isn't bad. I mean, they moved Tooney out to left tackle, and he's been really good. And they ran the ball. And you look at the Chiefs receivers, again, not the best group in the world, but with the emergence of Worthy and Kelsey, and they've been fine. The Chiefs defense is really good.
Yep.
So when I look at the big gap, whether it's Barkley versus the running attack, but I still would make the argument, to me, the biggest gap is Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. I mean, that is, to me, a light year sort of gap between these things. So to me, when I look at this Super Bowl, it really comes down to this is a Joe Flacco sort of situation.
And that was the name that I was kind of stunned to hear come up, where I've always felt that Hurts he's a little bit dynamic, right? He's not like he
doesn't run very well.
He doesn't, but
he doesn't. He's not a scrambler.
But they can still use him as a weapon in the run game on occasion.
But he really doesn't. He's viewed as this running quarterback. And again, I think a lot of it's because he's black.
Right. Well, and I don't necessarily think he's a running quarterback, but I think he can run more for you than Flacco could have.
Sure. Yeah, he can run more than Flacco. I mean, I'm not trying to compare Joe Flacco's game to Jalen Hurts' game. I'm just saying.
But you're saying if they're going to win, it's going to be not in spite of their quarterback, but like they kind of had to figure it out with their quarterback?
Yeah, and like Joe Flacco at one point was the highest paid player in football, and Jalen Hurts at one point was the highest paid player in football. But I do think it's more of what they've built around. The Chiefs are there because of Patrick Mahomes.
Yes.
They just are. I mean, obviously Spags and the defense and everything else that goes along with it, but believe me, that team goes as Patrick Mahomes goes. And that is not the case with the Philadelphia Eagles. When's the last time in an NFL, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Philadelphia Eagles are the 29th best pass offense in the NFL. How many teams are in the NFL?
32.
29th? When's the last time the 29th best passing attack made it to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, for everybody saying it's a passing league and that's what you have to do to win, not here.
So, I mean, Hurts throws a good go ball, right? And
Sometimes.
And he can do some RPO
Because
stuff.
even that's been inconsistent. His ability, like, we've seen A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith get frustrated this year because he hasn't been hitting those with consistency.
So, and Hurts, when Hurts shows up and plays a really good game, I mean, I realize this. This is where Jalen Hurts threw for 2,900 yards with 18 touchdowns and 5 picks. That's just not an elite quarterback. Philadelphia would be better off with Dak Prescott than they would Jalen Hurts.
Ooh.
They just would. But we remember Jalen Hurts from a couple years ago when Jalen Hurts was runner-up to the MVP, and Jalen Hurts had a phenomenal run in the Super Bowl. He balled out in that game.
Yeah, he was great.
And I'll tell you right now, if Jalen Hurts, I said this the day after the NFC AFC title games, if Jalen Hurts plays the way he did in the Super Bowl that he did against the Commanders, the Philadelphia Eagles will win the Super Bowl. Philadelphia is better than Kansas City. That is a better team than the Kansas City Chiefs at almost every position. But it's not as if there's these huge monumental gaps in these outside of the running back spot.
Yeah.
So again, it goes back to me of Kellen Moore and Jalen Hurts versus Andy Reid, and because you have two elite defensive coordinators with Vic Fangio and Spags.
They've got the track record. They are both elite.
But you're telling me that Kellen Moore and Jalen Hurts versus Andy Reid, if I just told you that, I said it's Kellen Moore and Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, I mean, that is a monstrous mismatch.
Yes.
But I do think that Philly can make up for it, especially in their ability to run the ball. So I just think this comes down to what version of Jalen Hurts shows up. Do we get the Jalen Hurts should have won, and I know he had the fumble and it got run back. Jalen Hurts played well enough to win the Super Bowl. He should have won the Super Bowl.
I've got that box score up.
When they played him.
27 of 38, 304 yards, a touchdown, no picks, 15 carries for 70 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
Yes. That was the game of games. And I think he has had a regression. One, I think he gets nicked up a lot. And I think he's nicked up right now. And this is the problem.
He's nicked up right now.
He is a big, physical, bruising guy that takes a lot of hits, even the tush push.
That's not easy on him.
They run that thing like 7-8 times a game.
Yep.
If you notice, Kansas City won't do it. They will not do it. Even Buffalo with big ass Josh Allen doesn't do the traditional.
Not the same way. No.
It's not the same way. So you do get Jalen Hurts that gets beaten, nicked up. I think he's lost a step with his explosiveness. And I also think that he isn't as willing to run as he used to be. So in this game, especially, if I'm the Philadelphia Eagles, the chains come off. You have to implement him. He's got to be the Jalen Hurts from 2 years ago. I would love to see Jalen Hurts with 6 or 7 designed quarterback runs. I would love to see some quarterback design, fake Saquon, and let's get Jalen Hurts out the back if the knee is healthy. And then he has to do a great job of getting rid of the ball. And you heard, it was Tom Brady that was talking about it. He turns down throws.
Yeah.
He is a guy that is only comfortable throwing to the outside.
I noticed that last week. It was someone was going on like a flag route or something like that because Brady saw the block. As soon as he breaks for the pylon, let it go, get rid of it. And he's hesitant. And I don't know if he's been told to just make sure we don't turn the ball over. He's averse to making mistakes, or if he just doesn't trust his arm or his accuracy enough. But I thought that was interesting.
So he needs to have, in order for Philly to win, I just think he has to be the best version of himself. And this year, he just really hasn't been the best version of himself. And hopefully we're peaking at the right moment, because that was the best that he's been in that Washington Commanders game. If he plays that way, the hand of God, they will win that game, because that is the biggest advantage that Kansas City has. And so I think it's going to be imperative too that Philly is going to run the ball, and you're going to see Kansas City run some exotic run blitzes. They're going to throw some things at this thing, and they are going to say, if you are going to beat us, it is going to be with Jalen Hurts. It is going to be forcing you to throw, and Spags will not let him just throw go balls. They're going to force him to throw over the middle. And as he goes, even against the Commanders, some of those were just sideline throws, and they were great sideline throws. I would expect Kansas City to really try to make them play.
Funnel them to the middle
of the field and see what happens, and make that passing offense click.
So then the $1 million question here, if that's what Jalen Hurts has to do for the Eagles to win, if you look in your crystal ball, will he?
at this point, you're betting against Kansas City with your own
At your own peril.
peril.
Yeah.
I thought Buffalo was going to knock off Kansas City. I really thought this Kansas City version was the weakest that we've seen. They're not a dominant defense. Again, go look at this year, and it's funny because look at their record. They are not a dominant offense, and they are not a dominant defense. But they don't turn the ball over.
Yep.
They don't beat themselves. And again, they've got the ultimate magic eraser, and that's 15.
Yep.
There's no better quarterback on third down. There's no better quarterback on fourth down. And there's no better defensive coordinator that comes up with big moment plays and drawing stuff up than Spags. But I thought that this team could be had. And yet here we are in the postseason, and we're sitting here staring at him again, being like, no one can slay him. So can Philly beat them? Philly beat them? Yes. Will they? I can't bet it because, again, I just, in my mind, Kellen Moore, who, by the way, is interviewing for other jobs, which, again, scares the hell out of me. I hate when coordinators are going into big games and
That's
coaches.
another good point.
And
I wasn't. We weren't even talking about that because Rob loves bringing that up. And here you have 2 weeks before the Super Bowl, and maybe your OC taking off. Yeah,
Scares the living daylights out of me.
yeah.
And I get Andy Reid with multiple weeks. I get Spags with multiple weeks, and an offense that at times, minus Saquon Barkley, who no one has really been able to stop. Dude's an absolute beast. At times, that passing offense gets ground into the mud. I mean, I'll go back and find a couple games that, like, when you watch them, like, and I know Philly wins games. And
There were times that offense was tough to watch.
Yes.
which is hard to say when you see a performance like you did on Sunday against the Commanders, where everything clicked. But there were times they're bogged down and getting criticized.
You're beating the Saints 15-12, and you're beating you're beating the Browns like 18-17. And I have no doubt that the Philly defense will hold up their end of the bargain, and I think Philly will run the ball real well. The other one that I really like is the best way to get a team out of exotic looks on defense, just run it down their throat. That's what Buffalo did in the third quarter. Buffalo came out in the third quarter and said, we're done dealing with all this crap. Here's our 6-0 lineman, and we're going to take James Cook, and we're going to ram it down your throat.
They could have done some more of that, too.
Philadelphia is going to do that from the get-go. I do not think they want to put this game on Jalen Hurts' shoulder, and I would assume that Kansas City is going to try to force them, which is why I would love to see, again, him get involved in the run game. Even though he's not a run-first quarterback, despite what anyone will tell you, he doesn't run like Daniels. He doesn't run even like a Josh Allen. Get him involved in the run game early. Get Kansas City to respect something other than Saquon Barkley, and then he just needs to be good when the moment arises on third down, and that's the thing that scares the living daylights out of me. On a handful of third or fourth downs, when it's 3rd and 5, when it's 4th and 5, and you have to throw the ball, and we know that dialed up pressure is coming, he holds on to the ball and doesn't process very well at all. And that, against that Kansas City defense, scares the absolute living daylights out of me.
Let's keep it with the Super Bowl coming up. Stupid or savvy? A preview of some of the more unique bets coming up for the big game next Sunday. But first, let's toss over to Ortner with SportsCenter.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a SportsCenter update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, despite one head coaching job still available in the NFL, former Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy has decided to wait until the 2026 coaching cycle to find a job. News out of New Orleans seems to indicate that Eagles OC Kellen Moore is the favorite to land the head coaching job after he came in for his second interview on Monday. Some injury news over in the NBA. Lakers star Anthony Davis will be out at least a week after he strained an abdominal muscle in their loss to the 76ers on Tuesday. Davis will miss the rest of the Lakers' road trip. He's heading home. They're taking on the Wizards, Knicks, and Clippers on that road trip. The Atlanta Hawks, they're going to be without forward Jalen Johnson. He's having season-ending surgery to repair a torn labrum in his left shoulder. Johnson was averaging career highs in points, rebounds, and assists. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Will Ortner at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080. The Fan.
The Hot Corner, now in its new
We'll finally get to the lawsuit over being too fat to ride in a rideshare. We'll also get to, we might get to Gen Z today. I don't know if we'll get to that. I've also seen a string of movie and TV themed burglaries recently, and I wanted to pick your brain on this.
Oh, right.
And when I say themed burglaries, I don't mean they're trying to like copycat them, but more they're targeting places from TV and movies.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like breaking into like the
Almost-
Breaking Bad house or whatever.
Yeah, kind of like that. Almost like like a cottage criminal industry. So
Well, I saw that like they caught like remember those the people were breaking into the athletes' homes?
yeah,
They got one of the people that broke into Joe Burrow's home and they had Joe Burrow's hat on when they arrested him.
I saw that they had the body cam. They pulled him over, and kid sitting in the front seat wearing a freaking Bengals beanie that's Joe Burrow's.
Yeah, it was just some like fat I don't know, they were like Venezuelan?
Chilean, maybe.
Chilean? Yeah, that was what, a Chilean. And just some like chubby like Chilean dude who was like 22 years old and he was wearing Joe Burrow's hat, and then they found like a bunch of Joe Burrow's belongings. He had like a Louis Vuitton bag with like a bunch of LSU stuff in there. Cool move, dude. Way to rob the guy and then wear his stuff, which I think is very strange.
Yeah, I think it's also just really stupid.
When I-
If you know that you've committed this crime, don't go wearing the guy's stuff out in public.
When I was in school at BYU, I had a pair of, this is how lame I was, but do you remember the dragon glasses?
The dragon glasses.
Yeah, like the Terminator glasses. Like
Oh, yeah,
Schwarzenegger.
yeah.
It was a brand.
Yeah, yep.
Like it was I don't know, it was like a cool brand like back in 30 years ago. Like you'd get them at Zoomies or whatever. So I had a pair of
Zoomies.
I had a pair of dragon sunglasses.
Hot topic.
I think the Metal Militia wore them.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, Metal Militia, let's go. Dragon sunglasses. And they were in my sweet K5 blazer, and some D-bag broke the window of my blazer and stole like my, they stole like my CDs. I had that the floppy envelope.
The dumbest thing that we all had. Yeah. Your CD case.
He got my Merle Haggard CDs. And then
Damn.
like there wasn't anything worth a damn in my thing, but he stole my CDs, and there was a BYU team issue like zip up, and then my dragon glasses. Like
You sound like the dude, he took my Credence tapes and my papers.
And so I came out and I was pissed. Mainly I was pissed because he broke my damn window.
Yeah.
I didn't have,
Yeah.
it's like crap. So I had to do the sweet, like put the plastic up over my window, and hand to God, the very next day after my window was busted, here comes this fat piece of crap, like 14-year-old kid riding his tasty Schwinn down the street by my house where my blazer was parked. Guess what the dumbass is wearing?
Your sunglasses.
And my BYU team issue zip up.
Oh my God. How, see,
I just like
criminals are dumb.
for a minute I thought I was being trolled. I was like, this is not.
You might have been.
I was like, this is not happening. Like someone put him up to this.
So did you kick his ass?
Well, I grabbed the bike from him and I was like, hey,
It's my bike
dumbass.
now.
I was like, what are you doing? And I was like, dude, those are my glasses. That's my jacket. He goes, no, they're not. Because my mom bought them for me. And I was like, I was so pissed. It took every bit of my power to not strangle that little rat, you know what. So I grabbed the glasses off of him. And by the way, he was like trying to like weasel out of it. I grabbed the jacket. He was, I unzipped it from him, and he spun off and he left the bike laying there. So I followed him home because, again, the idiot ran home and he was fat, so he couldn't run very far. He lived like 3 blocks from me. He's down the road. So I knocked on the door and like the mom answered, and I don't know, we called the police and nothing really happened. And we couldn't
It never does.
we couldn't really prove that he broke it. I never did find my CDs, but the mom was pretty pissed.
I bet you would have found him under his bed.
Probably, and the mom was obviously pissed, but I did get
And embarrassed,
get my jacket and my glasses back.
That's right. At least
But
you got your Terminator glasses back.
Yeah, don't break into a car that you live 2 or 3 blocks away, and certainly don't wear the things you stole the very next day and you ride by the house that you stole them from.
Yeah, that's pretty remarkable. And I mean, are you asking to get caught? I watch and listen to enough true crime documentary stuff. Like, it's always criminals being idiots that ends up getting them caught.
Yeah,
Always.
Although I'm proud of myself that I swear I did not assault the kid.
Yeah, you a little bit of restraint there. Like,
I may have thrown him off the bike, but that was it.
yeah. Do you and now
So light pushing.
back?
Yeah, exactly. Light pushing. And let's be honest, you didn't really have to assault him. That diabetes is going to get that kid eventually.
You should not have pushed him for these glasses. I had to look him up. I didn't know what you were talking about.
Oh yeah. Dude, you don't know, Will. You didn't know back then.
Trust me, back in the day,
Those things were the bee's
dragon
knees.
glasses. Those were the bee's knees.
I
Those
just
were hot.
feel better now knowing, like, when you make fun of me for the dumb young things I do, just like, well, at least I didn't wear dragon glasses.
God, in middle school, I wore Jinko jeans, like the 23-inch open, like at the leg, just huge skater jeans.
Yeah.
Those things are freaking back. I
they
saw some
back?
kid wearing them today. So big there was a pocket inside his pocket. It was nuts.
Yeah,
I don't.
they're back.
Are
Big
dragon
time.
glasses? Is that even still a company?
I used to have a pair of snowboarding goggles from Dragon,
Yeah.
but I don't.
Oh yeah, right here.
But
Yeah,
I
they're
don't
back.
know if so they still do sell glasses.
Yeah, they still sell them.
Dragon Optical.
Dragon. Yeah, that's Just go to dragonalliance.com.
All right. Well, let's try to
believe
get.
me, the amount of dumb crap that everyone did in their 20s. Yeah, it's the way it worked.
Didn't get to any Super Bowl betting there, savvy or stupid. We'll see if we can get some of that next. Plus, Stuke loves to talk about kids' ravioli fists. How a ravioli fist may be derailing one of the top golfers this weekend. We'll get to that story next on The Fan. I'm gonna pivot here. We have we basically have 2 weeks to talk about Super Bowl stuff, but this weekend, the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. This weekend, Scotty Scheffler returns to the tour. This weekend,
Scotty Scheffler hasn't been on the tour?
well, it's his first event of the year. Others have played, the Sony Open, the Farmers, whatever. He has not played yet this year, and after taking some time off, this will be his first tournament of the season, but a little ravioli fist might get in the way, and I'm not talking about his kid.
Oh, no?
Have you seen the latest injury to one Scotty Scheffler?
Oh, what did Scotty Scheffler have?
Apparently, homemade ravioli making
Really?
ended up with a hand injury. He tried to use a wine glass to cut ravioli, in a sheet, because he didn't.
I can see that. So you're trying to make the circle.
Yeah, I would
He didn't
imagine
have a cookie
that,
cutter.
or I guess you could be trying to roll the edge of it. But either way, he wasn't using a cutter or anything like that.
Yeah.
And he put too much weight on that sucker, and he sliced his hand open with a broken wine glass.
I'll be damned.
While making homemade ravioli. So people are questioning whether his first event of the year will be hampered by this ravioli fist of his.
Yeah, he said, broke the stem and it kind of got me in the hand. I can't live in a bubble. I've got my life to live, and accidents happen.
He also
I'll be damned.
he also said that as a non-wine drinker, he wasn't quite familiar with how fragile the wine glass might be.
I'll tell you what, he was leaning, so he was using a.
I guess.
Boy, that is a bold move.
Precarious. Yeah.
Gosh.
And then I did see there was a follow-up where one of the reporters asked, from this point forward, would you potentially consider a private chef so that these sort of things don't happen? He goes, "Oh, I already have one. Her name's Meredith, and she's really cute." He's, of course, talking about his wife.
About his wife.
Yeah.
Well, I'm that's one of those sports
it's like a baseball injury.
Well, yeah, you can make fun of a dude for having a little cut on his palm, but if you got a nice little juicy cut on your palm, you're not going to be able to hold the golf club.
And this isn't, if you're playing linebacker for the Eagles, maybe a different story, but you got to swing this thing a couple hundred times this tournament, and I'm guessing if you got a freshly opened wound, probably not that easy. So
yeah, that is definitely one of those that you can make fun of different sports for kind of being candy asses, but
you kind of need that.
Certain sports lend themselves to being tough guys, and other sports not so much, because it's a feel thing. Like a pitcher, I always say, if they get a split nail, they can't pitch.
Or a blister.
Yeah, I think that's the worst. That's got to be the softest injury of all time.
Especially there's pitchers who they deal with blister issues chronically. And so there was a guy on the Giants who came out of the game 6 times a year because of blister issues. I'm like, you can't figure this out?
Meanwhile, Ronnie Lott's cutting off.
Cut my pinky off.
Tip of his finger. Like I said, it's I feel bad for you, Scotty. I feel bad for your little cutsy palm there. And the idea of leaning on a wine glass, that's just.
I know.
Seems
it could have gone through there or something. I don't know. Cut some tendons. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the dumbest. I mean, I chainsawed my knee, but I feel like the chainsaw, it's if you're gonna do something, do it right.
Chainsawed your knee?
I did. I chainsawed my knee. Still made the show.
Oh.
Yeah, didn't you miss the tree or something?
No, I was when I lived in the backcountry there was a bunch of feral cats that lived around me.
So you tried to chainsaw them?
No, I was cutting down some brush. There was a bunch of overgrown brush, and so I had the chainsaw out there, and I was in my coveralls. I was out there doing some man stuff. And like a dumbass, I had headphones in, which I don't think you're supposed to do. So I was listening to music and I was chainsawing things. And my dog was out there when I had a Rottweiler at the time, and he was running around with me. America, yeah! And I felt him bump into me from behind. And so I kind of turned around to see what was going on. Yeah, he was in World War III with one of the feral cats. They were just going at it. And so I was like, oh crap. And they were right up against me. So I let go of the chainsaw with one hand to reach around to grab my dog. And as I reached around, you can see as you
forgot about the live chainsaw.
Well, yeah, as you reach around with one hand, and chainsaw, there's a trigger. So I let go of the trigger. But the chain was still moving. The chain still moves. Yeah. And so I reached around to grab my dog, and as I did it, the chainsaw dropped. I let go of the trigger. The blade was still going enough, and as it came down right into the old knee, and I was like, crap. And at the time, I knew I had cut myself. I didn't know
how bad.
So I got my dog away from the feral cats, and my dog's face was all ripped up. So I put the dog away, and I was like, I'm going to have to deal with this. So I put the dog away. I cleaned his face because he had a couple nice gouges on him. And then I went outside to get the chainsaw to put it away, and I saw there was chunks in the blade. And I was like, that's not good. So I came back inside and I took my boot off. And when I took my boot off, it was full of blood. And I was like, ah! And that's when I actually looked at it and I called my buddy who's the doctor and I was like, hey, I think I might need to come down and see ya.
Yeah.
So I took a bunch of paper towels and a sock. I took a shower, cleaned out all the grass and everything from it, wrapped it up and drove, and he stitched me up, and then I made it into the office.
Not very Rop of you.
I did not miss 1 second of the show, but I did walk in with a limp, and now I've got a nice chainsaw scar. And I would tell you, don't chainsaw your knee. It kind of sucks and it hurts.
Yeah.
And then you can't bend your knee for a while.
Rop would have been out a week. Maybe Danny too.
That's the one negative thing. I don't know if it's negative or positive. I definitely have that. Yeah, you're fine.
I'm fine. I'll just.
You're fine.
Yeah.
You're just you're fine. Like you'll deal with it. I'm a big believer of we'll wait a little bit, and if something's still bothering you, but when you like look into the flap of your knee and you can see all the way in there, you're like, yeah, I'm not.
Yeah. Mine wasn't as bad as the chainsaw. I did have an injury that was a little bit like that I should have attended to a little bit differently. Might begin the club with that. Coming up in the club, maybe more of our odd injuries, but definitely whether or not you can sue a rideshare company over you being too fat. We'll get to that with rapper Dank Deas. It's coming up next. Primetime, 1080 The Fan.
Need
On 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, a couple games in the association trying to wrap up. Right now, there's 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter in Charlotte. The Brooklyn Nets are up 88-73 over the Hornets. It's the end of the third quarter right now in Indianapolis. The Pacers are up 102-96 over the Pistons. End of the third quarter as well in Washington, and the Wizards are doing a good job of making sure that they don't win any more basketball games. Right now, they are trailing the Raptors 80-58 in that one. We're halfway through the third quarter in Boston right now. The Celtics are up 80-65 over the Bulls. And right now, halfway through the third quarter in Miami, the Heat, they do not have their star, Jimmy Butler. He is obviously still out with his suspension from the team. The Cavaliers are up 72-60 over them. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Will Ortner at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
Do it every morning.
I kind of wanted to see the Wang.
I ate ass.
Welcome back to the Club Hour. Injuries. Got one on the text line here that I haven't heard before. This seems pretty painful. Person on the text line says, I recently punched a wall in the garage while walking out the door and didn't see a screw that was there. I was literally stuck to the wall. I could not get my hand out. I could not get it out of my hand, and I was stuck to the wall, and the ambulance had to come and hacksaw the screw from the wall to release me.
Oh my gosh.
So that's got to be one of those like
Why were you punching the wall?
like yellow jacket trap situations, like where it can go in, but then it's like stuck and can't come out. Like, how do you?
Well, I think it's one of those things you got to be careful. Like stuff, like they say, if you get stabbed, whatever, you shouldn't. You should leave it in. Like pulling it out can be worse.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you could get it out if you just yanked your arm back. I'm not certain if that's the good thing that you should do or not. That is.
God, I need to know more about this. That sounds horrible.
The closest thing I had, I stepped on a sea urchin, and
those are nasty.
And they break off in your foot.
Yeah,
that's no good. I think that's the only time I've ever been like impaled. That was in Hawaii. I just walking along, and I'll tell you what, I pay real damn close attention to where I walk now.
I bet.
Yeah, that's one of those. You get one of those things, and there was like 4, like in my foot, and I was
they like shard, right? Like
yeah,
they like splinter kind of.
Yeah, it's awful. It is I'm either a shoesies guy now, and to this day, like even if I snorkel and I see like the black sea urchin, it like freaks me out. I won't go. I'm always afraid like the wave's gonna like push me down. It's like gonna go into. It's all kinds of bad.
Yeah, I've, I guess in that same realm as of spiky things, technically I believe a tequila-related injury. I was both drinking tequila, and it was the agave plant that got me. You know?
Yeah.
You know those, like, the ones that they spike at the end, the leaves? And when you're in those, like, dry, arid regions, the tips of those leaves, like, they almost, like, harden into, like, shivs. Yeah. And I was, like, at the bar at the hotel and was trying to make room for somebody walking by, and I just backed up into one, and I got one of these things just impaling my calf. And I was like, oh! And I thought someone had, like, I didn't think someone had actually stabbed me, but it felt like I got stabbed in the bottom of my leg. I turn around, and there's an agave plant inside me.
Yeah, the jungle is full of nasty little things. It was not a bad injury, but the most sad thing that I've ever had happen to me is I love movie quotes.
Okay.
Big fan.
Same.
And there's nothing better than when you end up with a perfect movie line and no one is there to appreciate it, or there is clearly a follow-up and the other person has no idea what you're talking about. We were down in Mexico, and one of the there was a hike you could go through, and it was the jungle that they shot Predator in.
Okay.
And so I was like, what? We get to hike through the Predator jungle?
Got to do it.
Yeah. So, of course, we're hiking through the Predator jungle, and it's nonstop Predator quotes from me, right? The entire time. And I ended up getting cut on, you're hiking through brush, and it was, again, some sharp little plant. And it cut me. And it even cut me in the arm. And it was like, I was wearing a tank top, and there was like some good blood trickling down. And I didn't do anything. I was like waiting. I was like, come on. I was waiting for her to notice. Because if anyone that's seen Predator, you know where I'm going with this. So I'm just walking as I'm bleeding, and I'm not saying anything. And I'm like,
come on.
It's like 2 or 3 minutes go by. It's finally the BTJ turns around and she goes, oh my God, you're bleeding. And of course, there's only one thing to say at that point. I ain't got time to bleed. I ain't got time to bleed. And I was like, no appreciation for it whatsoever.
And it just was like, what do you mean you don't have time to bleed?
Yeah, she's like, what? We needed to. And I was like, just come on. Just one appreciation for it.
That is the perfect damn setup.
It was.
I mean, you could say that for any bloody incident or injury, but you're literally
Yes.
in the Predator jungle.
Waiting. I was like, come on. And she didn't even it was like, it wasn't like she was like, oh my God, you're bleeding. She said like, oh, but what happened? I was like, say you're bleeding so that I can say I got no time to bleed. And then I got mad and she was like, you're so stupid. And then she didn't care that I was bleeding anymore and probably hit me where I was bleeding. Because I was so upset. I was like, come on. It's like the one good time that you had an injury and I was happy. When I started bleeding, there was part of me that
I had
was
an injury and was happy.
I was. That's the only time I've ever been hurt. And I was like, yeah, I'm bleeding in the Predator jungle. And then I realized it just was sucky because it was, it was kind of dirty and gross. I was like, I hope this doesn't get infected. It went from like cool Predator line to, I hope that doesn't get infected.
Yeah, that doesn't sound too pleasant.
A lot of those, in the jungle, there's a lot of those sharp little nasty plants.
Yeah. Well, that might be actually a good time for us to segue to our movie and television-themed burglaries. This is going on in England, where there have been a series of break-ins at locations that Ted Lasso was shot in.
What?
So I don't know specifically why burglars would care, but they're saying there's no denying that these heists or these break-ins are connected. They were all places featured on the show Ted Lasso.
Okay.
And so, I mean, we can
get
get
the most un-Ted Lasso thing ever. Because, by the way,
very much so.
I love Ted Lasso, and normally that stuff is pretty cheesy for me. Ted Lasso was like the most feel-good. Like, you can't. It's a wonderful pick-me-up sort of thing. And someone's burglarizing the Ted. That's like, you want to talk about tempting karma. You can't do that.
That's exactly right. So yeah, it's in the Richmond neighborhood, as we know, AFC Richmond, and they believe they've collected over £2 million worth of valuables.
So
from
this
these
is a really
places.
fancy area then.
It's got to be, or at least the flats are.
Yeah, because this one lady said she lost $250,000 worth of jewelry. Which, by the way, if you got $250,000 worth of jewelry at your house, woo.
Well, yeah, it says one of them is reported to have been stolen from the house of the Verve rock star Richard Ashcroft. So,
this is nice.
So famous places, I guess. But yeah, on November 2nd, burglars stole valuables from a $3.3 million 8-bedroom house. Writes the Sun.
Oh yeah, these are
these are nice spots, but even so, I wonder if it's just because people have seen them. Like can you case a place through the show?
I guess, but like I'm seeing the lady has photos of what was stolen. Dude, this is her engagement ring.
Whoa. That's like a Vanessa Bryant looking thing.
That is, that's a I cheated on you, and please don't take half my stuff. I mean, I don't know how many carats that is. That's gotta be like a 10-carat ring, dude. That is enormous.
That is a massive rock.
Well, now we know why $250,000 worth of jewelry was stolen. That's some serious jewelry.
Yeah.
So it is weird that it's all featured on Ted Lasso as opposed to just being rich people with lots of really
just
nice
any
stuff.
homes in this neighborhood. But then that got me down a kind of like a rabbit hole of wondering, okay, if you were going to go, not that you're going to go burglarize places you've seen in movies and film, but if you did, What kind of? I mean, they're clearly just going for.
National treasure, right? Can't we go to Mount Rushmore and
Ooh,
get that?
that's a good idea. I hadn't
steal
thought about that.
We steal the decoration of it.
I was wondering what you would where you'd pillage, what sets, what places.
Well, let's also realize too that are we assuming that I actually have burglary skills?
Yes.
Because quite frankly, I don't think I'm capable of stealing anything. One, I'm very recognizable. Two, I'm very heavy-footed. You're gonna hear me coming. And everything's on camera. I don't have the time nor the wherewithal to plan any sort of burglaries. I feel like I'd be like that fat kid that broke into my car and then got caught the very next day.
Yeah.
But if I could, theoretically, go all Hudson Hawk and steal some cool ass, I'm trying to think of like where you would want to steal from it. You would want to do something nice.
Probably something nice.
I think I would do like a Gone in 60 Seconds. I think I'd steal cars.
Ooh, okay.
Like I don't really like jewelry. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of something that I actually think would be cool.
Well, I'm
that
also
I would actually
wondering,
want not just to steal.
Is there stuff from like if you knew certain locations of like Big Lebowski stuff and you could get stuff that was in the movie, like
I think you probably could. Like I've been to where they filmed the Big Lebowski. Like a lot of some of that stuff is gone, but like you can go find the Ralphs where they they filmed the Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
The house, Jackie Treehorn's house in that movie, is a famous.
Isn't it one of those?
Yeah, if you ever watch the Laker games,
What's that guy, Jimmy?
Yeah, I don't know. He looks like the oldest lesbian in the world. He sits in the front seat of like Laker games and like Rocket games, and he wears like the weird cowboy hat. And he's
Jimmy Goldstein.
Jimmy Goldstein.
Yeah, he's a famous architect, and it's one of his houses.
Yeah, it's one of his homes.
Yeah.
Like that's a famous home. It's been in a bunch of stuff. Yeah, you could do worse. Like if I could burglarize the Lebowski home, I guess that's Jackie
You'd also
Tree.
get Mr. Lebowski's home.
Yeah.
You know, that one where you could get
I'm not gonna lie.
other rugs.
I think that'd be kind of fun. Like, I don't know how much the worth would be.
Yeah.
But if you told me that we were going to break in and just rummage around, you could do a lot worse than rummaging around the set of the Big Lebowski.
Well, I think the top one would be the town because you get to go break into Fenway and steal from Fenway.
I was like, the town? That's just like a bunch of crappy apartments in Charlestown.
Dude,
no,
that's
you
awesome.
actually go to Fenway. That's
awesome.
That's not bad.
Yeah. No, I got a few ones every once in a while.
Yeah, stealing, like breaking into a stadium would also be pretty cool. I'm trying to think of where else. Like
The Home Alone house, the people there would be rich, so you could maybe sell. Because that's in Chicago.
Yeah,
That's a rich part of Chicago.
I just want to steal cars. Like I like the idea of just stealing celebrity cars. Like if I could somehow steal the A-Team van, let's go.
Ooh.
Smokey and the Bandits Trans Am. Now we're talking. Plus, then it's cool. I can get into a high-speed chase, like peel away.
Someone here says they just want to break into Patty's Pub, but they think there's never more than $5 in the register, which is probably true. Just go have a beer.
I don't think there is a Patty's Pub.
No, I don't believe it's an actual place.
I don't
right?
think it's an actual place. Like Cheers isn't an actual place either.
Yeah,
There is a Cheers bar.
There's a
that was-
place. Yeah, there's a place that you can go where they shot the interior scenes of Cheers, and there's the Cheers bar that has the Cheers sign out front that they used for
But it's
the
not.
purposes of like this is what the outside of our bar looks like, but there's not really
No.
a place that marries those two things.
No, I'm surprised that there isn't.
Yeah.
You would think that someone, although now that show's so old, maybe it would have just, wouldn't have been worth it. But yeah, something like that would be slick. Someone said I would burglarize Tony Stark.
Oh, not bad.
The man that again, I'm assuming that Hillside Mansion is. I don't even know.
I
if
think
that's-
it's real. I think you can rent it.
Is it real?
I've seen it on one of those like Instagram famous people houses things.
like a Scrooge McDuck money vault.
Ooh. Yeah, somebody here on the text line says the answer's simple, the Richie Rich vault. I did like that movie Richie Rich back when I was a kid, and yeah, there were some cool toys in there.
The Billy Madison house, maybe?
Oh,
that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it'd
And
be
that-
it is weird when you see the idea that someone lives there, and like sometimes it's a problem. Like the
Goonies one.
The Goonies one. That person was a real bitch about the whole thing. I think they sold it to someone that's actually cool. The Breaking Bad house in New Mexico, they had to sell that because people kept throwing pizzas up on the roof.
Yeah, I'd be kind of pissed about that too.
They got all pissy about that. Yeah, the Ferris Bueller home, the one out in the suburbs of Chicago, Cameron's home, Home Alone house. When you're in San Francisco, you can go see the Full House
9 times.
home,
Yep.
and I think people embrace that. I think there's a little plaque out front, if I remember.
You know what? That's by the Painted Ladies in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Those houses are so freaking expensive that you could get yourself a nice haul if you broke into some of those.
Yeah, that's right. Someone's saying the Cheers bar is actually the Bullfinch pub.
That's right.
I think that is the actual
Where the bar is,
Where
and then
the
there's
bar
the place
is.
that says Cheers. That's the
exterior.
the exterior shots.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you go, do you go to the Bullfinch pub? Is that like the closest? When you walk into that place, does that look like Cheers?
I don't know, because I've only been to the one that's like across the street from the park that just has the outdoor sign. Like, so I went into that bar because it had the Cheers sign out front, and they have Cheers coasters inside, but it wasn't the inside of the show.
I'm trying to, because I would go to that. Like, that's one that I'm a little cheesy like that. I would go and drink in, if there was a bar that was Cheers, even if it wasn't named that, I would go to that bar.
Yeah.
It's like when I the first time I went to Disney World, they have a Disneyland too, when they did the Star Wars theme, all I want to do is go drink at the Star Wars Cantina. I was like, let's go. I get a chance though, and that's where I was asked to leave, but still, I was very unfair of them being asked to leave. But the Star Wars Cantina, like, that was cool to go and actually drink, because it looks like the cantina at the beginning of Star Wars.
Fine, I'll take my mushroom trip elsewhere.
Just look, I'm just saying, I think I was profiled. There's no way I have to order food and there's a drink maximum and my Bud Lights counted towards it. Get out of here. I think that was a made-up rule. I think it was a made-up rule for a guy with a weird beard and an arm in a sling. It was there on his own. I didn't appreciate that. Star Wars land. Where's the fat lady suing Uber?
Yeah.
Can I sue Star Wars land? Can I sue
Disney
for Disney?
Yeah.
For telling me that I was not welcome in their cantina? I need to find out, if there is actually a drink maximum or if that was made up.
Let's get to know Miss Dank Deas, I think is her name,
Yes.
and find out about her claims and what she thinks she's entitled to, because you're right, this may have parallels with your 86ing out of the Star Wars Cantina.
I'm gonna maybe I need to call the advocates on this one.
Ooh,
I feel like I've been
get
wrong.
Donikin on the
I
case.
feel like I've been wrong.
That's a good call. We'll get to the Lyft lawsuit story with rapper Dank Deas next on The Fan.
The home of dirt and with Isaac and Suk is brought to you by Pub Beer, the official beer of Cheap Fun.
Can I get a hot tub?
Well, I got some bad news.
Little self-correction in order.
Yeah, I no longer have a lawsuit on my hands. I thought I was going to get my hands on some of that Disney money, and it turns out there is indeed. I looked up the Oga's Cantina in Star Wars, and it does say that there is a 2-drink maximum per guest. And then someone on the Vancouver 4 text line, I was just at Disneyland 2 weeks ago and was told indeed there's a 2-drink maximum. Son of a gun.
Wait, so
Really, a 2-drink? That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Why have alcohol?
Yeah. It's a cantina. So if you don't know, I was at Disney World by myself, and I was excited that Disney had beer. Like I didn't think Disney had alcohol.
I think for a long time they didn't, and then I want to say they opened up California Adventure, and then it became something that they, I think, started doing everywhere.
So, I was just roaming on my own, and I was after I had a major surgery, so I was in a sling. So I'd been drinking.
Was this after you tore your pec?
I tore my pec, and so I was medicated and was having some beverages as I was wandering around, and I made my appointment for the cantina. You have to it's a huge deal. You have to set it out hours out in advance. And so I had to make my appointment for 4. And at that point I had already eaten and I was having some drinks, and I walked into the cantina. I had 2 Bud Lights. I had one in my back pocket because I was just getting 2 at a time. And that's when I walked in and I ordered my drinks, and the lady brought me my drinks, and then I didn't want food. I was like, no, I just want to have some drinks. And that's when she told me that there was a 2-drink. I've met my 2. And then she shamed me and she said she actually saw you come in with 2 Bud Lights, so technically I shouldn't let you drink at all. And she said, if you're not ordering food, I need you to finish these 2 drinks and leave. And I was like, I just got here. And she was very rude and basically told me that I needed to finish my drinks and leave, or if I wanted to, she could take back my drinks and say that my 2 Bud Lights were my drinks and kick me out.
Wow.
Because I was like, are you serious? They're 2 drinks? And it's not like they were strong drinks either.
You got told what's up.
I did get told what's up. And so, I got booted out of the cantina for questioning the 2-drink. I thought it was an arbitrary thing that she just looked at me and was like, I don't like the look of this guy. Which, by the way, is probably fair. I probably looked very unsavory at that point. Still, I thought it was very wrong of her to be so judgy, but it turns out maybe I owe her an apology because there is indeed a 2-drink maximum.
Text line telling us that Applebee's has a 3-drink maximum. LOL, my uncle got in a fight at 1 and the kids were crying.
They do not have a 3-drink maximum.
That can't be right. Don't they do their Dollaritas and all that?
I've definitely had more than 3 drinks at the Applebee's.
Well, you know what? They probably have a 3-drink maximum if it's obvious you've had 3. I bet that's just there as a parachute to let themselves get off the hook for not having to serve you anymore.
I guess Applebee's is it's a big mingling spot for divorcees.
Yeah, it's supposed to be kind of the mid-40s to 50s pickup spots.
Yeah, if you're a recently divorced dad, you don't have a lot going on, go hang out at the Applebee's. Apparently, that's where you pick up the lonely ladies.
Hall Pass wasn't lying in that movie when they go to Applebee's.
Oh, is that where they go in that?
They're like, where should we go? Applebee's?
No.
I don't see any women here. Maybe Chili's.
I met someone on a dating app, obviously many moon ago, and I was like, where do you want to meet? She was like, well, let's grab a drink. I was like, all right. So I was thinking, what bar? And so I got a couple bars in Vancouver. I'm mostly a Portland bar guy.
Jerry's Tavern.
But she was from Vancouver, and she goes, where do you want to go? And I said, well, I can go anywhere. I said, most of my bars are in Portland, but I know a couple spots. And she goes, why don't we meet at Applebee's for a drink? And I thought she was kidding. I was like, what?
The one over by the Y?
I was like, are we really... are you serious?
And she was serious.
She was dead serious.
And did you go to Applebee's?
She was like, oh, yeah, I love it there. She's like, it's a great spot. And I was
what
like...
is the draw?
Cheap drinks?
Cheap.
But can't you find cheap drinks at places that aren't Applebee's?
Let me just say that is no offense to anyone, but that's a giant red flag. But I was like, all right. I'm like, we're meeting at Applebee's. So we met at Applebee's, and yeah, she knew the bartender. I guess she hangs out there. And dude, it was a scene. There was a ton of people on dates, or
it's popping off, huh?
Or they're mingling. That Applebee's in the Couve, I'm telling you, it's a full-on spot, and it's
pretty wild to me.
Yeah, it's no young people. I didn't see the Will Ortners there, but there were plenty of people that were about my age, and a lot of dudes wearing khakis and white socks that were at the Applebee's looking to score.
Just an FYI, I have been kicked out of that Applebee's.
Nice. But that was that because you were having too many all-you-can-eat riblets?
I ate too many chicken wings.
Too many chicken wings. There you go.
They used to in college. There was one in Spokane. And so when I'd go visit my buddy at Eastern, they used to sell Long Island iced teas for $2.
Hell
As a
yeah.
part of their happy hour. So we'd start there, and then we'd go out elsewhere. But
I want to say when I was in college, Taylor's had $2 Long Islands on Friday nights, and go down there with a $10 bill, and you are good to go.
Yeah, I will say that I do recall. That's the only time I've been to the bar at Applebee's. But I do recall, as I'm picking up the tab, I do remember having a couple cocktails and thinking to myself, like, when the tab came, I was like, oh my God.
It's not too bad.
Like, this is it. Now, this was many moon ago, but cocktails are expensive now. Not at the Applebee's.
they're cheap out there, man.
Textline wants to know, what was the price of the Bud Light at Disneyland?
I don't remember.
I mean, was it like they're gouging you like a ballpark, or was it not that bad?
No, I would say it was probably like $10.
Okay, so bad but not horrible.
More expensive than the cocktails at Applebee's.
Yes.
There you go.
I remember they had like at the Star Wars land where I was at. They had like $8 or $10 Bud Lights, and then in the new Star Wars where Luke drinks the weird milk.
I have not seen the new Star Wars.
Yeah, I
so
know
I
what you're talking
don't
You know what I'm talking about? They had that was the only alcoholic beverages that I saw. They had Bud Lights. I think you could get Bud Heavy as well. Like that Bud Heavy, Bud Light, and then they had like their slushy drinks. It was like whatever that creature was in that Star Wars movie that like Luke was suckling at its teat. It was those. So they had like a white one, a blue one, and something else. And they were basically like pina coladas. And they had like no alcohol in them whatsoever. That's what was available at the Star Wars land.
Gotcha.
So I just was drinking Bud Lights. But just be aware, in the cantina, 2 drinks, and if you don't eat, they get very, very pissy at you and tell you to leave.
It's not really a cantina, is it?
Well, no, it just seems so pointless. And I get it, it's a family spot, but you're there at a cantina. You should be there to drink. And 2 drinks? Like, what? Who is this for? Is this for like 100-pound? Like, it should be by size. Like, you should weigh. Like, for every 100 pounds, you should get 2 drinks.
You're over 30 on the BMI. You can have 4 drinks.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of BMI, rapper Dank Deas, reportedly around 550 pounds, she was denied a ride share, a ride that she says she could have fit in. Does she have a case? We'll discuss next. Here's Will with SportsCenter.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a SportsCenter update on 1080 The Fan.
SportsCenter is brought to you by Crunch Fitness. Memberships as low as $9.99 per month. Find your Crunch time in Portland, Vancouver, and online at crunch.com. First on the Fan, couple games wrapping up in the association right now. The Pacers are up 118-107 over the Pistons. 5 minutes left to go in that one. And the Raptors are about to go over the century mark in Washington. They're up 99-73 over the Wizards. 4 minutes left to go there. In Boston, the Celtics have just opened up a 20-point lead. They've got 10:52 left to go in the fourth quarter. They're beating the Bulls right now. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Will Ortner at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
The home of Primetime.
us sinners.
Club 1080 with Isaac and Souk is brought to you by Pub Beer, the official beer of Cheap Fun.
Double sun power!
Welcome back to the club. A story that we've been meaning to get to for a couple days now, but Detroit rapper Dank Deas is her name.
Now, whenever I hear these stories, and I feel this is this way in all music genres, but I feel like rap and hip hop especially, they always say like rapper. Does anyone know who this is, or is this a person that put out like an album on SoundCloud and calls themselves a rapper?
That's what I'm actually in the process of trying to figure that out right now, because I've never heard of this.
Or have I, but I am not into this music, so I'm open to the idea that Dank Deas is great and that people love her, but I just feel like a lot of times, like, these things like, oh, country artist, and then you're like, dude, you are not a country artist. Like, you put out an album that you made in your basement once. You know, there's the difference between being an artist and actually someone that anyone has heard of or listened to. Or are you just a big gal that likes to rap occasionally in your spare time?
Yeah, I'm looking at her YouTube page now. She's got 8,000 subscribers. She's posted 113 different videos.
So she has 8,000. Okay, so she's not a real rapper.
It would not appear
Dude,
so.
if you have no offense, but if you have 8,000 as your subscribers, you're not, you know.
I think we have like 4,000 subscribers for our YouTube channel, which just started like last year.
Exactly. So, no offense, Dank Deas, but I don't think you're blowing up the charts. But all right, I wanted that established before we went forward.
Well, here is the incident in question. She shared a video on Instagram on January 19th that captured an interaction with her and a Lyft driver who denied her a ride. The driver locked the doors and rolled down the window and said, "I'm sorry, I got no space. My car is small." She said, "I can fit in this car." He said, "Believe me, you can't, so I'm sorry. I'm going to cancel the ride. You're not going to be charged."
Yeah, boy.
And she says, "You're telling me I can't get a Lyft because I can't fit in your car? So are you really telling me I'm too big to get in your car, so I've got to order another Lyft?" And the driver responded, "Yeah, you need to order a bigger car." Then, let's see. He basically just left, and apparently she, because of this, was not able to make her cousin's birthday party.
Oh, stop it. You
Hey, I'm just reading the news, man.
You couldn't call another Lyft that would come and pick you up
Yeah.
5 minutes later, and you missed a birthday? Stop it.
According to the complaint, she paid for a Lyft ride from her residence to a football watch party at her cousin's home. The driver then arrived in a Mercedes-Benz sedan. She tried to enter the vehicle. He locked the doors and drove away. She said that she's fit in that kind of vehicle before, but he drove off. She was unable to attend her cousin's party. As a result, suffered stress, humiliation, mental anguish, and emotional damage, the complaint said. The defendant Lyft, through its agents, representatives, and employees, said that they... Oh, okay, so defendant Lyft, through its agents, representatives, and employees, unlawfully discriminated against the plaintiff on her weight, treated her differently from similarly situated individuals based on weight, and allowed the plaintiff to be subjected to unlawful harassment based on her weight. They're essentially arguing here that this is no different than denying someone a ride because of their race or gender.
Have you seen the car?
What kind of car was it?
It's a compact car.
I thought it said a Mercedes sedan. Is it not actually a sedan?
It looks to me like in this picture, it's more of a compact.
Because she posted this on TikTok,
and he's saying like you need to get an XL car. A sedan would be an XL car.
Yeah, I would think so
I would
too.
Assume.
I'm trying to see what the car we're dealing with here.
Also, I do think it is important to note that her Instagram handle is Paid Fat Queen.
Yeah. So it's part of her thing.
Aren't we?
Here's the thing. This is where
am
I
I
think
the
it
only
gets,
one that thinks that like you can refuse service to anyone? Like if you show up and I'm S-house drunk,
saying I don't like you because you're too fat is different than saying you can't physically fit here. Those are.
I hope she gets no money out of this whatsoever. Look, I understand that being a big person sucks. Totally get it. You seem to embrace it. It seems to be part of your thing. It's in your profile, right? You said she's like what?
Yeah, it's like her Instagram handle.
This goes back to like the airplane seat.
Here's the car, by the way. I don't know if you can see it here, but it's
So it's a 4-door.
Appears to be a 4-door. Let's see what the back. Well, they're not showing the back.
But it's small.
It's small.
It's like my Toyota Camry, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would assume that as a Lyft driver, that is your car.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's your car. Why do I have to let anyone in my car? I'm an independent contractor, I would assume, for Lyft. Why don't I have the ability to look at anyone and be like, well, I don't like your attitude, or I don't like this, or I don't like that, and say, you need to find a different Lyft. Remember who was the councilwoman got booted out of hers? Remember up in Richfield, it was Joanne Hardison.
Oh, yeah.
The guy was like,
about
hey, I'm
that.
pulling over. He's like, I'll call you another Lyft, and this one didn't work out. And she's like, no, you're going to take me. He's like, no, I'm not. Yeah, it's a free country. You don't have to take anyone for a ride. And I don't know. I just find that to be ridiculous. And she's now suing.
Well, yeah.
This is it. You're just trying to get
She hasn't left her place because she felt some type of way. And listen, she's leaning into it really hard. And
She said, I've been in cars smaller than that. Okay, that's your opinion. This guy didn't think you could fit in. He said, I want to know that I hurt my feelings. I understand that your feelings are hurt, but you don't get money because someone hurt your feelings. You just don't. Sorry.
yeah, she says, I was embarrassed and felt some type of way about
Well, I'm
it.
sorry she was embarrassed. I've broken chairs before at parties, and I've been very embarrassed. If you're a big guy, you've broken a piece of furniture in your time, it's a terrible feeling. It's an awful, awful feeling.
Broke a couch once.
Yeah, it's no good. You know, I've had that, like, you go to get in the dentist chair, and you're like, oh, my God. It's like, is there an XL dentist chair? You know, like, we've all had that. Being big kind of sucks.
Her attorneys said in a statement, refusing someone transportation based on their weight is not only illegal, but also dangerous. Imagine the consequences if Mrs. Blanding or Ms. Blanding were unable to seek shelter after the driver left her stranded. This could have ended even worse.
I believe he got fired too. I don't believe he can drive for Lyft.
Really?
Really?
I didn't see that. It says here at the end of the article that Lyft noted they cannot comment on specific incidents involving pending litigation.
Dude, that pisses me off. We are such a bunch of crybabies now. That is such an asinine thing. I'm sorry. Like, if you're too fat to fit in something and someone looks at it and is like, I don't want that. I don't want you in my car. That is not, no one violated. It's not your right. That is a private company with a private car. Like, I don't have it. I have a sedan.
The only thing that's in question is whether she was discriminated against or not. Because if you pull up and you don't like the look of someone and you say no, that's discrimination. But if you say, I don't think that you fit, that's different, right?
Yeah.
I would think.
It's your car. It's like when we got into the whole airline thing. It is not your right to get on an airplane. It's just not. That just stuns me. I hope she gets $0. I really hope. And the sad part is they're going to settle and they're going to give her a bunch of cash. Did it say what she's suing for? How much?
Let's see here. I did not see a dollar figure in either of the two articles. That
I hope she gets jack squat and that Uber or Lyft, whichever one this was, Lyft, right?
Lyft.
I hope they actually are willing to litigate it, because the problem is that all these companies just are willing to settle now because it's not worth it, and so everyone just keeps getting money off these crappy lawsuits. It was like we did one not too long ago with Rob. The guy sued because of we just talked about a lawsuit not too long ago. There was a guy that sued, and it was absolutely ridiculous. Oh, the razor. The guy was shaving, and he cut himself shaving, and he sued and got $6,000 because he cut himself shaving.
No, he got didn't he get $6 million?
No, it was like 6,000.
Oh.
It was like $6,000. And so to that company, they were like, fine, here's $6,000. It's not worth us to litigate it. But then it just encourages this. It encourages this behavior. What's wrong with when someone's like, hey, you know what? You're going to have to call another Lyft. You know what you do? You call another Lyft. And you get a bigger car. Well, because we were down in Scottsdale and for the Barrett Jackson, and there was 4 of us. So we kept ordering XL lifts. And the 3 guys that I was down there with, Liquor Rick is a small man. Liquor Rick's tiny. But my 3 buddies that I'm with are girthy individuals. So we would, everywhere we went, we ordered Uber XLs. And let me tell you, not every XL is created equal. So we had a Lexus RX that showed up to pick us up, and my buddy who's a cop, he could not get into he's like, whoa, I have a 3rd row. No, none of us could get into the 3rd row. I mean, it was nightmare fuel. So could then we sue and be like, well, your XL isn't XL enough? Like, we didn't fit in the car. We could not fit in the back seat of that. But you know what? You don't sue. You just say, I need to order a bigger.
Yeah, you don't sue for him telling you that my car was XL when it wasn't. Because that would essentially be the same thing. You said your car was XL. Well, you can fit in here, can't you? Well, no, we can't. Well, that's your opinion.
Well,
like, it's
in this idea that like fat is the same thing as being black. No, it is not. And as someone that has battled, my whole family is bigger people. And I've been fatter and I've been skinnier. I've been everything from 220 in my adult life to 330. So I appreciate it. But guess what? When you wake up black or Jewish, you are black and Jewish. When you wake up fat, you can do something about it. You really can. So that is ridiculous. To say that it's the same as being discriminated against for race, bite me. If I'm on that, I want to be on that jury. And just so you know, if I'm on that jury, $0. Zero.
The text line says, weight or body size is not a protected class. Fat people can be discriminated against. Actually, in this case, nay. Apparently, the Michigan Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act says that under the law, refusing someone transportation due to their weight is no different than refusing someone transportation based on race or religion. So that's what the Michigan law says. So,
but if you can't fit in, are we gonna have to do an OJ? Is she going to have to get her big ass in the car?
They're going to have to bring the body of this Mercedes sedan into the courtroom and have her try to fit inside?
I think she knew that this was a law, and she's been waiting.
Well, there's a reason she's filming it.
Yeah, she knew what was happening.
She was filming the interaction as it happened from the start, which means, like, you always start filming later once the incident's begun, usually, right? Like, if you're taking a video, like, I think she was ready for this.
She was prepping for this, and you know what else she thinks this is going to do for her?
Help her rap career?
The music career.
Yeah.
She sucks.
Oh, do you have any of your music on your iPod?
Hers?
Yeah.
No.
No, you don't listen to Dank Deas?
No, today was Iron Maiden.
Oh, there you go. You run into the hills, are you, Will?
I did run into the Trills, and then I hung out with the Trooper. I am tired. I know. I know what you meant.
Will, I do have questions for you about Kendrick Lamar and Super Bowl betting his halftime performance. Maybe we'll get to that next as we wrap up the club. 1080 The Fan.
The Fan is
Some kick little ass. Rock slide and eagle.
Club 1080 with Isaac and Souk is brought to you by Pub Beer, the official beer of Cheap Fun.
Double sun power!
Yeah, Vancouver text side says, dude, I'm 6'7", 375, recent XO line. I've always ordered an Uber XL and have been turned down a couple of times. I have no problem with it and understand. Exactly.
And that's how people should react.
My dude's a giant human being, and sometimes you show up and the guy's like, dude, this isn't gonna work. So
yeah, so for Miss Dank Deas, maybe just, well, that sucks. I guess I got to order another is the
I love
correct.
that I missed. I wasn't able to attend the party. What? There's no other lifts.
Yeah,
None?
he told her to call another one.
And I would also like to point out that I understand that Uber XLs are more expensive. You know what else is more expensive? Bigger things.
Yeah.
Tends to be that way. If you can't fit in something like a first class seat that you may have to order on an airplane because you're too big to fit in a coach, yeah, that's going to be more expensive. You don't get to say, hey, I get the first class seat because my big ass can't fit in the coach. Therefore, you give me the first class seat at the same price as the coach. That's not the way that works.
Now, this is a different, and I understand, I guess, both sides of the issue here. Someone in the text line saying they're having problems with Uber drivers refusing blind people because drivers don't want the guide dogs in the car.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, if you're a driver, I think you probably have the right to say I don't want pets in my car, but you probably can't deny the ride of a blind person from a discrimination standpoint.
Yeah, I don't know what you... Yeah, that's a sticky one. I mean, honestly, if I was driving, I wouldn't want a dog in my car either.
And maybe there's some... I mean, I would think that the option you could toggle on is like... Maybe there's a no pets under any circumstance thing that like... A setting that a driver could turn on saying like, I just can't do those rides or I won't do those types of rides, but does that fall under discrimination? I don't know.
I don't know. That is... That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that one, but I don't think you can. I think guide dogs, I think they can go anywhere. So that's more of a sticky wicket sort of situation. What if you're allergic to the dog?
Well, yeah, that's the I mean, you absolutely and people are.
Yeah,
so
I mean, if you're allergic to a dog, yeah, that's...
And pet dander sticks. Like you just because one person comes in your car and leaves doesn't mean that you're not still going to have issues with dog hair, dog fur, pet dander, whatever.
I don't know. I don't know what you do with that.
I feel like that's one where you can just have the conversation of like, hey, I am your Uber driver. I'm allergic to a dog. I know that you have a seeing eye dog.
Can we cancel the ride and get you another one or something like that?
We'll make sure like you get it refunded. Like this is just something that I can't do. Most reasonable people would be.
Yeah,
okay
the problem is that, again, what you said, reasonable. That's the thing is...
And most people are reasonable, but what you have in the litigious society that we have is the people that are on the fringes going out of their way to create lawsuits when it doesn't necessarily fit them.
Yeah, it's like that's the problem is just... It's like the big guy that texted in, the guy that's the XO lineman. Like, that's a reasonable human being that just says, hey, man, I'm too big and... But what happens is that people are waiting for any reason to lose their ass. At the first sign of you've wronged me, at the first sign of you violated my rights, then we immediately go to
where's my money?
Where's my money? This is outrageous, and you got to make a huge... I see it. You see it all the time. You see it in lines at banks. You see it in lines at restaurants. The first time someone gets told something that they don't want to hear, we've now come to the point where our reaction is to just lose our S.
Go over the top. Yeah.
As opposed to being like, all right, well, it is what it is, and go about my way. Or especially in something like that, like you just get a different one. Like, and rideshare didn't work out. There's lots of other rideshares.
That Lions watch party was not waiting for anyone.
No.